Welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is Sunday, September 19th, 2021. Kind of a busy day for a Sunday in terms of news. They got the Gabby Petito latest. The FBI found remains that are like hers in Wyoming, the 44th state, the land of Dick Cheney. A ruthless killer who walks the earth, A man who was just so lucky his old Halliburton company, they just happened to buy the cleanup company 2 days before the BP oil spill in the Gulf while he was in the White House. Just so happened he bought the company 2 days before the BP Gulf oil spill. They got the huge government contract to do the cleanup. It's like, wow, what are the odds of that, man? The guy's the vice president days before the national news story about this, oil leak in the Gulf that's causing a mess. They're also throwing in the story that his company just bought the cleanup crew just 2 days before it happened. I mean, again, those are things they put out in the mainstream, you guys. They're just not the big headline. It's not like the thing it programs you with all day, like Gabby Petito, Gabby Petito, Gabby Petito. You got to know about Gabby Petito, right? She's so relevant to your life. The story of Gabby Petito, right? It has a lot of relevance to your life. And, that's got to command your attention. But a story like Dick Cheney, picking up the company that gets, I can't remember if it was multi-billion dollar, the way they print money these days, whatever the value of it's worth. Isn't it funny how, like, you hear well, I don't know about, I'm almost 40 years old, that when my grandpa was a child, a nickel, you could take out a nickel and get a great meal and go out to a movie, and it's like, man, a nickel, you could do all that? That's amazing because, man, now if you just want to go see the movie and get like a thing of popcorn, it's like $30. I mean, think about that. That's like a reality, right? So it's like a large popcorn's $10, a movie ticket's $20. So it's like, wait a minute. So my grandpa back in the day, let's just say he could just go out to the movie for a nickel and just forget the fact that he could get a meal and a dessert, and maybe even take his date out. That might have cost like 2 extra pennies. Date's like, what? She only gets two. It might have cost a dime then. I'm just making the point. It didn't cost anything. But, yeah, people, you got to be careful with your words, man, because people interpret what you say in different ways, You guys have to realize, like, when you put a video out on the internet, you are talking to a broad spectrum of people. So you got to expect all sorts of things that you're like, man, I wouldn't even think of, but I didn't mean anything about like be cheap on your date. Definitely don't. Be good to your sweet lady. Be generous to your sweet lady. That's the only way really to do it if you want to have a relationship. Sweet ladies, man, they need a lot. But yeah, just getting back on the topic of this, just this news media, the news media that really does mock you if you're paying attention. You realize how it mocks you each day. The way they word some headlines, it's like, man. They're getting away with murder, and the reason they can do what they do to us, you guys, and the American public doesn't blink an eye, is because this is what we were trained to be like as people in the way we go about things. Like, we don't question anything. We just go along with the authority, and you think about your life, that's what it was from a young age. Your parents were an authority, and they were teaching you things that they learned from an authority that were becoming the most important things of your life, from religion to what you learned in school. And again, at the end of the day, do we know that any of this stuff that they're teaching us in the churches, in the schools, is real? Again, I was kicked out of confirmation class as a 12-year-old for asking questions. And that told me really all I needed to know about the religion that I had questions about. People can't answer questions, and they say that it's disruptive to ask these things and to stay on these points. It's like, I don't want to move on to the next thing if you can't answer this question. This question right here is fundamental. Like, this question's so important. I don't need to know about this next story with all this wording that I don't really understand in all regards. And then you're telling me, even though it says this word, it really means this. And it's like, well, then why didn't they write that word in there then? Again, just religion as a child who questioned things, just like, and again, I don't think religion's all bad. All things in this world are good and bad. If you learn to be a moral person and to be more than just about yourself through Christianity, then I think Christianity served you well. But if you just learn to think like, oh, my religion's the greatest and fuck everybody else, which is like how 90% of the Christians I've ever met are, then you're just part of the problem of this world that's under the spell of the cabal that wants you exactly like that, dividing over every last thing, believing so much in their systems. Again, if you guys are new here, my channel is about teaching what's really going on in the world and who's running the show. And the word Illuminati is not something to be mocked. It's something to say, well, was there ever an Illuminati? Is there any relevance to this idea of a cabal, like an Illuminati, having some great political influence and, you know, interfering with nations and causing wars? Is there anything to this, or is this all conspiracy nonsense, right? Right? Everybody thinks that these kind of concepts could just never happen. When, again, it's a historical fact that the Bavarian Illuminati, established with 13 very powerful families, May 1st, 1776, came into existence. And they say it lasted for a period of time, and the leader, Adam Weishaupt, became an alcoholic and a sports gambler. Or not just necessarily a sports gambler. In the modern era, yeah, he probably would have been, but just a gambler, liked to gamble on all sorts of things. They say his life fell apart and the order fell apart. But again, this is a secret society, and that's the information that's like vaguely out there in the history books. Does that prove that the Illuminati really fell apart because Adam Weishaupt became an alcoholic and a gambler? You know, I mean, that's not proof that it really ended. You just have to take the historical record for the fact. Just like if you're a kid growing up in school these days, you're reading for historical fact, Osama bin Laden did 9/11. It's like, where's the proof behind any of that? Was it the 5 different videos released over several months after 9/11 of Osama sitting in a cave, speaking for minutes at a time, and you're waiting for the translation, and then 3 words come on the screen? You know, Allahu Akbar, 9/11, justice against the infidel. It's like, that's really all he said? I mean, they're playing his mouth moving for 3 minutes, and he just had, what? I mean, man, their language must be really damn complicated to say that little in that long a period of time. It's like, who's watching this shit and going, oh, okay, thanks, news media. Thanks, big brother government. I'm sure that's the exact translation of what he said. Allahu Akbar, 9/11, justice for the infidel, or whatever. It's just like, come on, man. They treat me like I'm retarded, man. And again, they do, you guys. They treat us like we have some kind of severe mental disability. And coincidentally, Dick Cheney bought and is going to become very rich off the BP oil spill. And then, you know, a week later, the news... See, what was funny is if you watch that in real time and you paid attention to headlines like I did back then and was trying to wake... I've been trying to wake up everybody, you guys, since 9/11, just nonstop. And I just... It's been nothing but grief and, you know, just... Because people don't want to hear it, man. They don't want to think about things. They just want to ride on this roller coaster of life. And they're realizing, man, this roller coaster, it might be kind of fun in some ways, but are we sure that the track's even finished? Are we the first run ever? How's this really going to end up? This doesn't look good from all the signs I see. You know, that was my interpretation as an 18-year-old when 9/11 happened. And I said, what'll the world be like in 20 more years? You know, it seems like we're taught to think about time in terms of 20 years from now. What's my life like? I mean, people look at it in shorter time frames too, and other time frames, but 20 is just such a common thought with time. And that was the exact kind of thought I was having after 9/11. What's this country going to look like in 20 years? Is this a place I want to stay and live in? You know, do I want to live in the United States of America in this post-9/11 era? Because again, to me, what I saw was my nation was not free, and my people were not brave, and, you know, we needed a new national anthem that really said what we're living under, and it would have something to do with tyranny. And again, you guys, don't forget the original definition of government, or not government. Well, that's another good one. We can talk about government in a second, but the original definition of terrorism is government by intimidation. And government, the Latin, English comes from Latin, govern relates to control, and ment relates to the mental, the mind, control mind. Now in 2020, 2021, we got literally companies that are kind of in the business of mind control. These big pharmaceutical companies that prescribe all these drugs, especially antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicines. These are common. I think I'm a rare American in the fact that I've never been on any prescription in my life, minus like some antibiotics, after you had something bad, growing up. But, and I haven't really been to the doctor. I've had to nurse up some things that maybe I should have gone to the doctor for. But I haven't really been to the doctor hardly at all since I was a child. I went in there in my early 20s strategically because in 2012, if you had a physical checkup and you complained about pain, then they'd write you the note so that you could get a weed card. And again, that's the beauty of weed. If you don't know, you can take CBD that doesn't make you high at all, but weed is really one of the best painkillers there is in the world. And don't forget, 100 years ago, you look at what maybe a little more than 100 years ago, right around 1900. Go back and look. I should check exactly when that timeline was. That would be a great research project. There's so many things you can take with this knowledge and look into. But again, a century or so ago, most of the drugs that were in the pharmacy were plant-based, stuff that comes from nature. Nature provides, right? I think that should be one of the laws people live by. Nature provides. And that doesn't mean abuse nature, but just, respect nature and watch how nature gives back to you. If you destroy nature, then you lose what it gives, right? I mean, it's such a natural thing to witness. And, I was in Token Tim's garden today, man. He has, I'd say his garden's probably 40 feet wide, 30 feet deep. So I guess that's 1,200 square feet. Man, it grows so much food. He can't keep up, and he's like, man, can you guys come over and take more? Because this, and there's not enough people that want it. And again, the reason people don't want it is because he's growing foods that Americans aren't accustomed to eating. A lot of kale and broccoli and just, tons of vegetables. But it's just amazing, He's not going to the grocery store. He's living mostly off his garden. And the thing just keeps giving, right? You could feed a lot more. There's 3 people where Token Tim is, and they live off that garden, So, but yeah, over 100 years ago, the things that were the painkillers in the pharmacy were cannabis-based, weed, ganja, And it makes sense. If you're one of those people that just doubts everything, see that's what they do to us as Americans. It's just like we don't care about information. We doubt everything because we grew up like in a world of salesmen and con men and people always trying to get like your emotional interest and make it seem like they're hooking you up only to find out that you got hosed again. You got ripped off by another scam artist, and you're like, God, there's so many smiley face liars in this world. And it's just like people have had that experience so many times. That's part of like my problem, right? Is like I can't reach a lot of people because a lot of people are already scorned by the world and they think everyone's full of shit and everyone's a bad guy. And it's like so many people have that judgment, but if they'd been here from the beginning, like anybody who's been here from the beginning, I don't think any of those people think I'm a con man. I mean, you guys, I've been here for 8 years straight. I started August 2013 just pumping out information every day to tell you what's going on, who's running the show, how they're doing it, and why we need to wake up before 2020 comes. That was the year I knew things were going to get crazy. That's why I've always been saying people are going to be seeing clearly by 2020. Obviously not everybody, but there's a lot of people who weren't as awake that see now like, okay, the shit Zachary K. Hubbard that's me's been talking about is actually real. Because I've been saying, man, the next 9/11 is coming. The same people responsible for 9/11, they will strike again. They are our government. This is an agenda. Remember Mr. New World Order, the Bushes during 9/11. Again, all this stuff's really transparent if you're thinking. And remember, I think that's also why they move people away from the plant-based medicines, because I think these plant-based medicines like make people's minds work, whereas these man-made drugs, they might take away the depression or the nervousness because you're doped up on something. And but that's like, it's like the natural medicine is like healing and making it work. The other thing is creating something else to essentially like static out the other problem. And just think about it, the fact that they moved us in that direction. They had all this old world medicine that worked, all this real knowledge, from all of our ancestors, the progress of the people of the world, and then they came in and they said, "Oh, no, 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 that's the old way. We're the new way. The new way is all this man-made stuff, right?" And again, you just think about the reality that Pfizer is the most sued company in the history of the world for wrongful death and injury with medicine, and they happen to be the first to be approved by our government for a rushed out vaccine with minimal research behind it, as admitted, but seen as necessary because of the supposedly very bad pandemic. Again, I'll remind you guys, I have a big family because my mom has 9 brothers and sisters, and a bunch of them have a bunch of kids. And the oldest living relative I've had, and this is since the pandemic began up to now, is my mom's mom, who's I've lost track. She's around her mid-90s, and you know what? They gave her 2 vaccines even so far, and which is sad. My mom's sister, who lives close to where she stays right now. She signed off on it and wanted to do that. So my mom would not have had that done to her mom, but her sister that's there. And it's funny that it's her sister who's there, because she when I started this research, she started making fun of me and said I had like some kind of mental illness for talking about this thing about, well, the exact topic we're going to get into tonight. And again, I just knew when she was saying that I wasn't wrong. I don't have mental illness. Like, this is a joke to have this perspective about the information I'm sharing. And look at her now, going out and participating in the big sick joke that could have some very serious consequences. And I think for a lot of people it already has. A video that's going viral right now in the truth community is Max Igan's interview with the funeral home director. And that funeral home director says exactly what his funeral home place is in the UK, and he does realize that what he's doing could bring some ill intention his way, because not a lot of people are speaking out. But yeah, I mean, and he makes the point how when the pandemic first began, the news media was working with him, and he was believing that all the stuff that was coming in at first was COVID, but then he realized something else was going on, and he said ever since then the news media doesn't talk to him. And again, that's why it's a good interview, because you can look up who he is and see that if the story is true or false. And I wanted to bring that up because if you haven't seen that, you should seek it out. Max Igan, I think he does mostly good work, but I have some questions about him, and him and I were supposed to be roommates at the Anarchadelphia thing before that event fell apart. But most of what he does is good. Again, you got to question everybody. I think it's fair to question everybody. He said some things that are suspect, but that interview he did, I think people should listen to that and research the gentleman who was speaking and see if his story seems sincere. I doubt it's far off from the truth at all. He has some projections of his own based on what he's seen. So, yeah, look into that interview. And if you do watch it, one thing I got to talk about before we even get into the main topic tonight is Washington State, where we are. Look and see if they're doing stuff like this in your state. But here in Washington State, in the town of Centralia, where that is in Washington, it's about an hour and a half south of Seattle. And Seattle's the biggest city. And then it's also about an hour and a half north of Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, Canada, which is just north of Seattle. There's also a Vancouver, Washington, in the southern part of the state, which is a suburb of Portland, Oregon, the biggest city in Portland. But Centralia's central. It's right between Portland and Seattle, driving up I-5, the nation's west coast biggest freeway, Interstate 5. And it's funny, being aware of the number thing, I started to think about how I-5, I's the ninth letter, is 9-5. And again, the Jesuits created to counter the 95 Theses. Over the years, there's been a lot of suspicious celebrity wrecks related to the interstate. And if you're new here, 95, it's the number of the culprits. Their birthday with Rome is coming up September 27th, the day leaving 95 days left in the year. the gang that was recognized by the Roman Catholic Church on September 27th to counter the 95 Theses written against the Catholic Church. And in Gematria, Fauci equals 95, who's a Jesuit. And again, it was the Jesuits who served the Roman Catholic Church, created to counter the 95 Theses, who sure do like the number 95. And don't ever forget, when Fauci threw out that first pitch at the Yankee game last season, 2020, the coronavirus pandemic debut year, Garrett Cole, that was at a Yankees-Nationals game in D.C., Garrett Cole picked up his 95th career win that day after being signed by the Yankees on the 95th day of his age in the offseason. And again, I'm just bringing all this stuff up to remind you, these people work by a code, and that's why they mock us every inch of the way with this coronavirus pandemic, if you know what they're doing. And young Ben, shout out to young Ben. Young Ben, a long time ago, said, watch, September 20th was going to be a real big day for this ongoing pandemic agenda. If you guys are new here, Ben is a young man in his early 20s. He's been with the channel since, I want to say he was 15 or 16. Has it been that long? It might have been that long. But he was definitely in high school, and he's made brilliant contributions. But we'll talk about why young Ben said a long time ago September 20th would be one of these big days in the ongoing pandemic. And again, it's just following a very simple pattern that is well documented in my book that I finished writing over a year ago now. It's been out for over a year. And since the pattern's documented, there's just been example after example after example using the same type of rituals. So we want to talk about why on September 20th, the third Pfizer shot is going to be approved for people 65 and over, or recommended. And again, if you're new here, Gematria, very simple practice of coding numbers into words. September 20th is the 263rd day of the year, which is the 56th prime number. And 56 and 65 are the numbers of this pandemic, and I'll make that crystal clear. So it's the coronavirus pandemic, it's the COVID vaccine. If you can see the screen, in Gematria, pandemic equals 65. Pandemic equals 65. The way you get that value is just taking the alphabetic order. A is 1, up to Z is 26. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, just counting up. Z is the 26th letter, that's why it's 26. But pandemic, P is the 16th letter, A is the 1st, N is the 14th. You add up the letters of pandemic, it adds up to 65. And we've been talking about, we were literally out on the corner in Seattle, Washington, in cold, wet rain at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, March 13th, 2020, educating about 65 and Event 201, the coronavirus pandemic simulation that Bill and Melinda Gates were co-sponsors of. And their representative was one of the biggest speakers at the event. But at Event 201, which was October 18th, 2019, 1 month before the outbreak in Wuhan, China, and it was on the same day the Military World Games began in Wuhan, China. The Military World Games began in Wuhan, China, October 18th, 2019. The day leaving the Military World Games, if you look into their history, they began in 1995. 1995, right? And if you look at where they began in Rome. The Jesuits, the Roman Catholic Church, counter the 95 Theses, recognized by Rome on the day leaving 95 days left in the year. Event 201 was the coronavirus pandemic simulation, where in 18 months, 65 million people die. And this third booster is coming right at 18 months into the pandemic. September 11th, 2021 was the 18-month mark as the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization. But 65 million die in 18 months in, again, the Event 201 simulation. And that simulation was done on Melinda Gates' 65th day of her age. And the vaccine just went live at the end of last year, in December of 2020, right after Bill Gates turned 65, October 28th. And so again, what we're getting at the 18-month mark is now 65 and over can get their third dose of the vaccine. And by the way, when you write out 3, it's got the 56 connection like COVID vaccine, like coronavirus. But here's what I want you to go back and look. These are both facts. January 29th, 2010, Bill Gates declared what he called a decade of vaccines. A decade of vaccines. In Gematria, when you take the alphabetic order and use the rules of numerology, decade of vaccines equals 65. So it's still A is 1 up to Z is 26, but what you're doing different is Z, the 26th letter, becomes worth 8 because the numerology of 2 plus 6 is 8. Y, the 25th letter, becomes 2 plus 5 is 7. X, the 24th letter, becomes 2 plus 4 is 6. So XXX is 666. You're just making each letter a single-digit number. That starts at J. So A is still 1, B is still 2, C is still 3, D is still 4. Those don't change. A through I don't change because that's 1 through 9. Where it changes is at J, the 10th letter, because the numerology of 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1, so J is 1. K, the 11th letter, is 1 plus 1 is 2, so K is 2. L, the 12th letter, is 1 plus 2 is 3, so L is 3, so on. Very intuitive code. I learned about this in Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages. If you don't know who Manly P. Hall is, he's a 33rd degree Freemason, very ritualistic man who shed some light on some of the secrets in this world that are being used by, certain types of people. And I've known from the time of 9/11, it became very apparent to me on 9/11 and just paying attention to the world after, that numbers were very important to news rituals. It wasn't just 9/11. I started to realize they're doing a lot of stuff with numbers and news. And I didn't know what it was all about for the longest time. But I have a big clue now that I learned about Gematria. But remember, Bill and Melinda were married January 1st, 94. And that was 65 days after Bill Gates' birthday. And again, being married on the first day of 94 is weird because coronavirus pandemic equals 94 and Seattle, Washington's 94. The 94th NFL season, since football's underway, that was won by the Seahawks with Super Bowl 48. Seahawks equals 48. News just broke on September 16th that Russell Wilson, the quarterback who won Super Bowl 48 in the 94th NFL season, that his friend died at 48, and he was so giddy to talk about it. He was just so pepped up to talk about the death of his friend. And that's why I always tell people in Seattle it's embarrassing that they wear this man's name on their back because he's the most obvious fake, phony fraud there ever was, who loves Jesus, a fake, phony fraud who loves Jesus. He's always sure to get the Jesus part in. How he does it all for the kids. This guy does it because he's... Sometimes I wonder if these dudes are just straight up Manchurians and they don't even realize what they are. And then in that case, it's not really Russell Wilson's fault. But man, it's just so sick to watch this guy. But man, he was amped up to talk about the death of his friend at 48. Yeah, man, it was worth it because I won Super Bowl 48, man. We won it with 43 points. Here, if you guys are new here, I want to teach you Gematria real quick. What I call the 4 base ciphers. Seattle, Washington. You see how it has these values? All of these values are up here are important. Where it equals 94 is when you run the alphabetic order and reverse the rules of numerology. Seattle, Washington is 94. Where coronavirus pandemic equals 94 is the cipher I just taught you a second ago. Just the alphabetic order with rules of numerology. It's reverse alphabetic order with numerology and alphabetic order with numerology. So remember, coronavirus pandemic 94. Seattle, Washington 94. And that matters because Bill Gates is up in Seattle, Washington, where the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is, 5th and Mercer. I lived there before that thing was there. It used to be a park. I've had a bad taste in my mouth about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation since they moved in and tore out the park for the area, which was a nice park because it had basketball courts, a skate park, a nice big area. It was a great park. And then they just tear it out and then, there's no... you'd have to go at least a few miles to get to the next park like that, which isn't too far away, but still, man, you don't want to take away parks. That was something that was like understood 100 years ago. Even the tyrants didn't. I'm sure some of them did, but some of them like even had some respect for the park. Like, okay, there's the limit of my greed. I'm gonna let this community have a park. Otherwise, they're never gonna want to live in my world where I run the show. But it's like the tyrants of today. They lost the manners. They're worse. Anyway, you see how Seattle, Washington is 68 and 94? Remember, coronavirus was coined in 1968. Look it up. It's a fact. 1968. And here's some more facts. 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. World Trade Center construction began in September, or not September 11th. 2001, A Space Odyssey, the film came out. George W. Bush also graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones. The New York Jets, that was their only Super Bowl season. And then coincidentally, the Patriots always sucked until 9/11 and the Patriot Act. And then they just won every other game there ever was after that. Take a look at Tom Brady's win-loss record compared to every other quarterback in the NFL. It's just... And again, take a look at Tom Brady's body and just ask yourself how these things are possible. They're possible in the same way that people believe the story of the vaccines are super great and you need to go out and get one, and that's why they're being mandated, despite the fact we're reporting cases are 3 times higher than they were last year, which shouldn't make any sense if the vaccine's working, because they say, nearly 75% of the country has the vaccine at this point. So they should be, you would think, 3 times lower, not 3 times higher. But again, the reason they get away with all of this stuff, which is a mockery of our existence, is because, again, they've trained us from a young age to just believe, to just follow authority. Religion, school, news. You go to school and you learn, like, the news, that's credible information. The internet, that's not credible information. You know what I mean? They just teach you like that. Like there's blanket statements. Like you shouldn't have any critical thinking. You should just go with those guidelines in life. Don't trust what's on the internet. Trust what's on the news. CNN is literally running nonstop, guests and even their own hosts saying the same things over and over about don't do your own thing. CNN is literally telling their audience right now not to think for themselves and to just trust in the authorities on TV, which should be such an impossible position based on the fact that they've had to, be on every side of every issue during this pandemic. It's just like, wait a minute, where have you developed any credibility in this period of time? Nothing you're saying makes sense if you have a brain. But again, they know that they're talking to a nation of Tin Mans from The Wizard of Oz. Wait a minute. Who didn't have a brain? Was it Tin Man? Or did Tin Man not have a heart? I forget. One of them doesn't have a brain. That's like what they've raised in America. People that do not use their brain. They have one, but they just don't use it. There must be like some little region that's just like, okay, follow the directions, get fed, go to sleep, get some kind of enjoyment, even if it's for 2 seconds, and then do it over again. And it's like so many people's brain must just be that way, where it's just, follow the authority. And then maybe there's some other little area active where if anything goes against their mainstream narrative to just freak out and have a conniption. But, yeah, it's just where the people of this nation are at. Anyway, with regards to the 68 and 94 thing in Seattle, Washington, I forgot to mention that the World Trade Centers and coronavirus in 1968, year MLK was assassinated, RFK was assassinated, big year 68. Year the Club of Rome was established on April 7th, 3 days after MLK's assassination. By the way, MLK was assassinated on the 95th day of 1968. April 4th in a leap year is the 95th day of the year. 68 was a leap year. Every 4 years. Just remember 2000 was a leap year, just like 2020 was a leap year. But if you can't figure out what years are leap years, that's what you have to do. You have to go, okay, 1968 and just measure back to 2000. And you go, okay, that's 32 years. Leap years are every 4 years. 32 is divisible by 4. So that means, yeah, that would have been a leap year. And then before that, it would have been 64, 60, 56. I should go back and look at 1956. It was a big year for cancer. But 68, World Trade Center construction began, and the construction firm that built the World Trade Centers was Magnuson Klemenkic Associates from Seattle, Washington. And remember, after Seattle, they said the next case of COVID Remember, Seattle, Washington is where the first case of coronavirus was confirmed in the world outside of mainland China. The first case in the world outside of mainland China. Then they said the second case was in Chicago. And remember, Tom Hanks, Sleepless in Seattle. Tom Hanks, the movie, it begins in Chicago. His wife dies from some undisclosed illness, and he moves to Seattle. So, he doesn't have to be so close to where his wife just died with their young son. And so it begins Seattle, Chicago, moving because of the illness. The first two cases of coronavirus both happen to be in cities that are strong Jesuit strongholds. In fact, look it up. Bill Gates is building Jesuit high schools in Chicago right now. He's been doing it since before the pandemic. Bill Gates building Jesuit high schools in Chicago, which just happens to be in the time of Lori Lightfoot, the 56th mayor. And then you got Jenny Durkin in Seattle, the 56th mayor as well, in the time of coronavirus 56. And remember all the stuff with Tom Hanks and the predictive programming? Tom Hanks was in the movie Inferno, which released on Bill Gates' birthday in 2016, October 28th. The movie Inferno is about a billionaire who wants to depopulate the world with a virus. And then again, we'll go back and look at what he said in his TED Talk in 2010, right before his decade of vaccines. Anyway, man. We'll bring it all together. If it's not clear so far, I'll make it a lot more clear. But Tom Hanks, remember, he was the first celebrity with the virus, and that news came on March 11th. And again, that's the day the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization. They said he was filming a movie about Elvis in Australia when it happened. Remember, Bill Gates, he has a connection to Elvis and Jonas Salk through his first birthday, October 28th, 1956 of all years. Look it up. These are all facts. October 28th, 56. And remember what it is about 56. Where's the post with it on the screen? Here we go. 56 and 65. Do you guys know that when the vaccine went live last year, December, Melinda Gates was 56 years old. She turned 56 August 15, 2020. And Bill Gates was 65 years old. He turned 65 October 28th, 2020. Vaccine went live December 8th. That was Bill Gates' 42nd day of his age. And you know how I was just saying Bill Gates is connected to Elvis and Jonas Salk? From Elvis's birthday to October 28th, 1956 was exactly 42 weeks later. And that was Jonas Salk's 42nd birthday, credited with the polio vaccine. And that was Bill Gates' first birthday. And in Gematria, birthday is 42. And so is vaccine. Vaccine is 42. So this vaccine, it went live, right? It went live December 8th, Bill Gates' 42nd day of his age, at age 65. And 10 years earlier, he declared a decade of vaccines. By the way, he declared it in Switzerland, where the pandemic was declared from. Switzerland's another 65. He declared it from Davos, Switzerland. Let me show you something about Davos, Switzerland. You see how it's got the 68 and 94 212? Let me type in Seattle, Washington again. You see how 212, 68, 94, how all those things are there? Again, Bill and Melinda married the first day of 94. His father just died at age 94 this year. You know what I mean? And then the coronavirus pandemic in Seattle, Washington, where right away they began testing the Moderna vaccine, which is backed by Bill Gates, which blew up in its stock value on May 7th, which we predicted months in advance from understanding this, plus a million other things. But there's a lot more that can be said about all these numbers. There's a lot more that can be said about all of them. But understand the numbers are used ritualistically. And you know what underlies the 68-94? It's the word terror is 94 and 68. And George W. Bush, who was the president at the time of 9/11, whose dad 11 years to the day, September 11th, 1990, gave a speech about a new world order, a world freer of terror. And then New York, the 11th state in order of statehood. The World Trade Centers look like a massive 11. Flight AA-11, the first to crash. 11, the master number. Anyway, terror's 94 and 68. And again, the World Trade Centers, in 68, construction began, and 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. And the Rockefellers are behind this project, Jesuit family. But look at the gematria of World Trade Center. right? World Trade Center has the 94 in it as well. The 94 as well. As for the 77, when you write out September 11th, it's also 77. And remember, Flight 77 hit the 77-foot tall Pentagon on the 77th meridian 77 minutes after taking off. And with regards to September 11th equaling 85 the other way, we invaded Afghanistan on the day, leaving 85 days left in the year. This is all Jesuit Templar ritual. Templars 85, the old Crusaders, and now the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit order, has the Templar cross in their logo, and their motto is Jesus Hominum Salvator. And 85, you know. With regards to the 266, remember Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope. This is their motto, and he's the 266th pope of the church. The first publicly Jesuit pope is 266. Jesuit motto is Jesus Hominum Salvator. And you see the 122? Look at Pope Francis. Again, this is how we know that this is the system. The alphabetic order, forwards and backwards, all the rituals. You see how Society of Jesus is 56 and 79? All these other numbers are so important. Again, I'm skipping over things, but you see the 56 and 79? Again, Anthony Fauci's 56. He's part of this Jesuit network. And the pandemic was declared March 11th, 2020, same day Tom Hanks came down with the virus, on Anthony Fauci's 79th day of being 79 years old. And his birthday's Christmas Eve, you know? What a day to be a Jesuit. The Society of Jesus, or the Society of Mithra, because Mithra has so many connections to Jesus, and that was the old religion of Rome. Mithra's birthday is December 25th. Mithra, the sun god. You know what I hate about my presentations is I just know that like 90% of America, it's just like, it's too much. It overwhelms them. They have like a panic attack. I actually have to think. You know, I mean, and this is the whole problem again. That's why lately I've been going really hard after the religion too, because we're going out, and again, things need to be said. Understand, for all of you who are religious and can't understand what's going on in the world, it's because of religion. It's because being taught to believe, the word with lie in the middle, authority from a young age, which is what the world's been doing. And I'm sure it came, through a lot harsher times than the ones we've had to live in, where you were at the end of a bayonet or a gun or something else, a machete, a sword, whatever, a tar and feathering, whatever. There were times where our ancestors, they just learned to just toe the line and go along with authority because it was a survival mechanism. And the only reason, though, that these things can happen is because humanity is not organizing and uniting against these evil forces that use violence and war and propaganda and all the tools they have today. I mean, that's the thing too. These tyrants today, because of technology, it's a whole different ballgame. They can get out their message 24/7, 365, and they do. And even though you guys in the community, just every day when I log on and I just see comments, just like, Zach, can you decode this story? It's just like, okay, my point isn't to just decode every story in the Matrix anymore, you guys. I've been doing that for 8 years, and the reason I did that was just to show how coded this propaganda is. I don't need to do it anymore. I've been doing it for 8 years. Now when I make a video, I'm just hoping like, okay, this is a topic that people might actually care about, think about, listen to, and sometimes I present it a lot better than other times. Like today, I don't know if I'm doing the best job, but it's because I'm just so sick of talking about the same stuff over and over, but I want people to understand what's really going on here with this date, September 20th. And I want you guys to understand how important these number combinations are and how it's more than just tomorrow's date. This isn't just an isolated example. The polio vaccine in history was announced on March 26th, and then 56 was its breakout year because of what Elvis did. March 26th is 26/3, like 263, the 56 prime. Again, these booster shots, the third, where 3's 56, are going out on the 263rd day of the year, the 56th prime. And again, COVID vaccine, coronavirus 56. That Event 201 simulation, the first case, when they first started, in the early days of the reporting, they were saying that the first documented case of the world was December 12th. Then they went back to December 8th, then like December 4th, then November something, and eventually got back to November 17th, where they've just kept it. And again, where I lived in Washington State, people were getting very sick in November and December and saying they got the worst sickness they ever had. And the reason I can vouch for it is because at the very end of December, Sweet Lady got it, and I was taking care of her. And after 4 days of her being sick and me nursing her, I got it, and then I was the sickest I ever was. And again, I haven't been sick at all since that. So that might have been like the real unleashing of whatever they unleashed, but did it make it that far into the nation? Because I didn't hear about other states having these kind of problems, but they did end up saying that our state is where the first case was confirmed 2 months after everyone was already talking about this in the region. Just like, wow, have you gotten really sick, man? I got crazy sick. So anyway, coming back to the Event 201 simulation, which was right around that same time, October, just a month before, from that day to when the first time when they first started saying December 12th was the day, that was 56 days later, you see? And with regards to 102 days left in the year, if you've read my book, Number Games 9/11 to a Coronavirus, I teach you a lot about 56 and 102. And just to not overwhelm you with one more number, the 102 is not an accident. Australia, which is like where major agenda stuff is going on. Actually, I'm going to make this point about 102. I am. Australia's 102, right? What's going on is a war. It's a war on germs. It's a war on way of life. It's a war on human relationships. It's a war on so many fronts. It's definitely a war on the minds of the masses. And Australia might be getting the worst of it in the Western nations, right? Lots of lockdowns, very totalitarian. Remember we were talking about 102 at the beginning. They were saying that the last time there was a pandemic like this was Spanish flu, which originated on a military base at the conclusion of World War I, and we were talking about how World War has that 102 in it. And remember, the Jesuits, who are behind every inch of this... Oh, I didn't mean to write the... Whoops. Art of War, you've probably heard of that book before. Art of War by Sun Tzu. Remember, the Jesuit logo's the sun? Look into that book, and you'll find out that there's no historical evidence there was ever a Sun Tzu, but the translations of the text were brought to us by the Jesuit order. And Art of War 102, World War 102, Spanish flu 1918, 102 years before 2020 when the pandemic was declared, 102 years since the last pandemic in the U.S. And one of the big phrases out of this is social distancing, right? Part of the new normal, which is a big 102. I mean, that's the war on human relationships. Don't you guys, I mean, everywhere you go now, there's barriers up. Everyone's afraid. People are muzzled, way less likely to talk. Again, I got the experience of last year being in the post office, mailing books almost every day before most of this town started wearing masks. But then when the rules, the media programming got harder and some stores started making it mandatory, then you just started to see the whole community just started wearing their masks all the time. And when at first I was in the post office, I was striking up conversations with people, but then being the only person unmasked in the post office with everyone else with a mask on, wasn't talking to anybody. And you got some people glaring at you like something's wrong with you because you're not following the rules. But the post office never cared that I didn't wear a mask. But again, you just saw the immediate impact in society. Like all of a sudden, people aren't making jokes or talking about this or bringing this up, starting a conversation, asking a question. They're just sitting there with their muzzle on. And again, CNN from the beginning, had a projection from the experts that because of the new rules of the new normal and all of this stuff, suicides would probably be at as high of a rate as the pandemic cases themselves. And I was like, okay, if the experts know that, then how do you justify doing this? I mean, what? You're essentially doubling the death number? I mean, come on. If you're meant to die from something that was originally coined as the seasonal flu, then it's your time to go. That's just the reality of it. And if the reality is also that they're getting rid of people, which is what I'm going to talk about in a minute. But if their agenda is to get rid of people, well, here we'll talk. We'll just let Bill Gates do the talking on that here in a second. So let me go over all the notes one time clearly and make sure we got it. Okay. FDA panel recommends Pfizer's COVID booster doses. So this will be the third Pfizer shot, right? Because you got dose 1 and 2. So now the booster shot's going to be the third Pfizer shot for COVID. And don't forget, in March of 2020, I was explaining why, Vaccines were definitely coming, and they probably wouldn't make them mandatory, but just the private companies and the stadiums and all that, the air travel would probably make it so you need it. And then eventually everybody would just get it because it'd be inconvenient to live in the world without it. And that's exactly what it's been so far. And we said September 9th there'd probably be a big new thing. It ended up being Joe Biden giving a speech about mandates for certain government industries. And again, that if it is going to be anything, it makes sense to be the government jobs. This is a federal agenda. The federal city's the Jesuit city. Once Rome on the Potomac, owned by Francis Pope, not to be confused with Pope Francis. How scripted is our history, I do wonder. But again, just 65 and over. And it's not the first time we've seen a recommendation for 65 and over in the time of the pandemic, and we've been talking about the whole time. But I want people to think about how the deaths begin to multiply rapidly around the 18-month mark in Event 201 simulation, and mostly in larger cities, what are referred to as mega cities in the simulation, with poorer populations. And we'll listen to Bill Gates talk about why we need to reduce population here in a second. His old TED Talk just days before his Decade of Vaccines pledge in January of 2010, 10 years before the pandemic's at his doorstep, January 2020. And remember, January is named after the month Janus. If you look up Janus, it translates to gates. And Amazon in 2020 remade a British TV show called Utopia about a group of billionaires that want to depopulate the world with a virus and a vaccine and sterilize the children. Netflix added to their library in 2020 the show Between, a show about a virus being unleashed on a population and experimented with on the children of that population. It's like, wow, these are really interesting shows to add to your platforms in these years. And if you've missed my work on Utopia, you should seek out those videos because I think they're still on YouTube for the time being. And at least I hope they are. If they're not, I might have to figure out how to get those back on. But yeah, again, just real quick, 65. Here we are at about the 18-month mark in the pandemic. So we're in the time frame of around Event 201 because they say near the end of that 18-month is when it gets real bad. So, and we're getting stories now about how cases are 3 times worse in the time that 3 out of 4 people are supposedly vaccinated in the U.S. So, and again, in Gematria, pandemic is 65, decade of vaccines is 65. Bill Gates, 10 years before the push to vaccinate the world because of coronavirus, he declared a decade of vaccines, that's what he called it, in Switzerland, which equals 65. And by the way, Knights Templar is 65 as well. The Knights Templar, people believe they're still strong in Switzerland. That's where the banks are, right? And the original bankers of this world are Knights Templar, so it kind of makes sense. And again, the Templar cross is in the Jesuit logo. All this stuff's related. But Knights Templar is 65 like Switzerland. Decade of vaccines, pandemic. Knights Templar, warriors, Jesuits, current military order, military agenda. The last pandemic came out of World War I in a military base. You don't think maybe history is repeating itself in some ways? But Event 201 was the coronavirus pandemic simulation. On Melinda Gates' 65th day of her age, her birthday is August 15th. The Jesuits were created in Paris, France, August 15th, 1534. They were recognized by Rome September 27th, 1540. But the pandemic simulation was on Melinda Gates' 65th day of her age. 65 million die. The vaccine goes live right after Bill Gates' 65th birthday on his 42nd day of his age, when vaccine's 42. Washington's the 42nd state in order of statehood. And remember, in Revelation, the beast operates for 42 months. The beast is 666. That's the beast number, just like the number of a man. And when you write out number of the beast in Gematria, it's 66 and 258. Bill Gates declared his vaccine alliance Gavi July 12th, 99, his 258th day of his age. His dad died on the 258th day of the year last year at age 94. And then the FDA just fully approved the vaccine 66 days before Bill Gates' 66th birthday. Again, number of the beast is 66. It's also 258. His name, William Henry Gates, equals 258. Here, I'll just show you. When you run it in reverse, his name is 258. And when you run it forwards, it's 201, like event 201. And remember, that's the biggest number with the Jesuits in their rituals. It's not an accident that Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope and the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican, just like it's not an accident that his birth name is Jorge Mario Bergoglio, 201. By the way, check out the YouTube channel Eric777. He just digged up a piece of research that's crucial. The first documented mandate put out for a vaccine was in the 1800s and put out by a pope. Isn't that interesting? And don't forget that Pope has the Gematria of 56. Forwards, it's 52 like the weeks in the year. And of course, we're on the Catholic calendar that has 52 weeks in it in tribute to the Pope. But his birth name is 201, Pope Francis. And the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius of Loyola, 201. And remember, when you write out the Jesuit order, it's 201. The actor who plays Pope Francis in the film The Two Popes, Jonathan Pryce, his name's 201. In history, the Jesuits were saved by Catherine the Great, who preserved the order with 201 Jesuits in 1773. July of 1773, Catherine the Great saves the Jesuit order with 201. And again, event 201. The coronavirus pandemic simulation, the same day the military world games began in Wuhan, China, that are credited to the Jesuits, a military order, and then, 102 years after the last pandemic, which is connected to military and war, and again, Art of War is 102, World War's 102, and 9/11, you guys. Again, I teach about all this stuff with 102 in my book, Number Games 9/11 to Coronavirus. Again, they say the 9/11 attack lasted 102 minutes. The one thing that's missing, shout out to Young Ben, it's in the new book. Young Ben looked up Project Amalgam Virgo. Look it up, it's a real thing. June 1st, 2001, 102 days before 9/11, the 102-minute attack. It's got Osama bin Laden on the cover document. This is a government simulation of cruise missiles hitting strategic targets in the U.S., and some people think it was really missiles on 9/11. Take a look at those explosions. They didn't find any plane parts. Again, special effects exist, you guys. Computerized graphics. Again, the people that rule over us, they use manipulation to steer our minds. And again, just look at one of the things that always bothered me about 9/11 was how huge those explosions were. Like out of Die Hard, but even bigger. And again, why would a plane explode like that? I'm sorry, a gas explosion, not going to be that big, blow out steel, and just no way, man. No way. But yeah, young Ben found this, man. And look at it, how they got it. Project Amalgam Virgo. Or maybe it's Operation Amalgam Virgo. Hold on, I might be giving you the wrong first word. It's Operation Amalgam Virgo, I'm sorry. Look up Operation Amalgam Virgo. And that's the beauty of Gematria, because I know that the proper name in Gematria equals 119, just like September 11th, 11/9. And look at Amalgam Virgo. 119, right? It's also 56. The three planes that hit targets on 9/11 were Flight 11 and 175. By the way, yesterday Bill Belichick became 17-5. It's sick how they do it, man. Or it was today. Bill Belichick became 17-5 at New York as the coach of the Patriots. Flight 175, the New York jet on 9/11, then the Patriot Act, then the Patriots. All these, they keep doing these 9/11 rituals with the Patriots. It's all rigged. It's all scripted. If you deny it, sorry, you're not cashing checks today. A lot of people made a lot of money again. I don't mean to make this knowledge about money, but it allows you to see through the matrix perfectly, call what they're going to do before it happens, and take advantage of their rigged sports games. But the flights that hit on 9/11, 11 and 175 and 77 at the Pentagon, add 11 plus 77 plus 175, it's 263, the 56th prime. What do you know? Amalgam Virgo, 56, right? Society of Jesus, 56. The Catholic Church, Mary's birthday in Virgo. The Christian Coptic New Year, September 11th. Some people say that's Jesus' real birthday. You see how Society of Jesus is 79? We talked about that, the pandemic on the 79th day of Fauci's 79th day of his age. Look at Knights Templar. It's got the 65 like we were talking about, but also the 79. And you know what else I just realized about that? Hold on. I know some things that are 205 that are interesting, but what was it? Operation? Or it was without the operation. Amalgam Virgo's got the 205 in it as well. 70 is interesting because that's like Vatican is 70, Francis is 70. Tisha B'Av in Jewish Gematria equals 9/11 to remember the destruction of the two temples. The second was in the year 70. That's why there's something big to that number 70. Remember, coronavirus is on the other side of that as well, and all this stuff is biblical. It's all biblical. That's why they did the first simulation, Clade X, May 15, 2018, 666 days before the pandemic was declared on March 11th. Look how Clade X is 113 when you run the alphabetic order in reverse. 11/3, March 11th. You know? If I remember right, it was 113 days from Meg Ryan's birthday, March 11, 2020, the co-star of Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle. And if you're new here, I've taught about 113 for years and what that number has to do with deception and where it comes from in the Talmud, who have a lot to do with the Jesuits, because the Jesuits are what Martin Luther warned about. That's why they were created, to kill him and the movement against the tyranny of the church. You know, they don't teach us a lot about... you guys just think about it. They kind of, again, I can't speak for younger generations. I got out of public school in 2001, right before 9/11 happened. But, well, I guess that's not exactly true. I went to Arizona State after that until 2005. So I guess I got out of public school in 2005. So, May 5th, 2005, the last final I ever took, 555. Amazing. Never forget it. Great day. But yeah, Clade X, you guys, 666 days before the pandemic was declared. In Sumerian Gematria, vaccination is 666. It's just where you multiply the alphabetic order times 6. See how vaccination's 111? 111 times 6 is 666. I didn't invent any of these ciphers. They were known about before I ever walked this earth. A is 6, B is 12, C is 18, D is 24. Again, this is knowledge that's only taught to certain groups of people. You know, it's not taught to you in slave school. And that's the whole problem with what they did to us. In slave school, it formed the minds of the children. The minds of the children are warped. All they do is listen to authority and believe authority. No matter how much they're getting spit in the face, they just keep marching forward because it's all they were ever trained to do, and it's apparently all they're capable of. And, yeah, it's just, you know, it's one joke after the next. That's why Chris Rock, by the way, speaking of one joke after the next, how about this one right here? Today, Sunday, September 19th, Chris Rock says, man, he's got COVID and it's bad. And not only that, he says, get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Chris Rock. Man. It's too bad. It's too bad, man. It's too bad that all these guys are owned. You know, they probably know, though, that if they don't play ball, you know, then we're reading the headlines about their overdose, right? Chris Rock, OD. Could have been the headline today. It could be something like that. Could have been reading about the Chris Rock overdose today. Or, you know, Chris Rock died from COVID today. We could be reading that story today. You know what I mean? So this might be the way that they stay in the game. And again, to me, that's the definition of if you're a punk. Because, see, again, there's things in this world that are worse than death. I'm telling you, man, if I was given the ultimatum of if they're going to poison me, or I'd hate to die brutally. Maybe that's also how they get people. Is they don't threaten you, but then they threaten your family. I don't know. I haven't been in that situation. I don't have children of my own. But see, that's the problem with the psychopaths that run this world. Is this how they operate? You know, do this or else we'll kill you. Or we'll kill your wife, your sweet lady, your children, your mother. I mean, your whole family. And then we'll blame it on some crackhead in the neighborhood. And we'll get away with it because we run the whole show. But, yeah, it's just sad that the world's this way. But look at this, you guys. I mean, it's just clockwork, right? Today happens to be 142 days from Chris Rock's birthday. And again, in my book, I've laid out a lot of rituals. In my book, I talked about how the NBA suspended its season due to coronavirus on March 11th. the 142nd day of the season. And then after my book came out, they resumed the season 142 days later. I mean, come on. And they did so much with there's a lot more than that, you guys. There's so many rituals they've done with 142 and coronavirus. But here's another one. Chris Rock's 56 years old. Today's 142 days from his upcoming birthday, and that means it's synced with his 57th birthday. And as we know, vaccine's 57, which is why we predicted early in 2020 that there'd be big news with Moderna backed by Bill Gates and the vaccine on May 7th. Its stock value shot way up that day. And again, not only is vaccine 57, Bill Gates, who has the same birthday as Jonas Salk, his name is also 57. You guys see how Bill Gates is 87? He supposedly got the vaccine January 22nd, his 87th day of his age. Him and Melinda were divorced 87 days before his upcoming birthday, and they supposedly met in 87. And remember how we were talking about number of the beast? Number of the beast. The FDA fully approved the Pfizer vaccine 66 days before Bill Gates' 66th birthday. The vaccine ritual for him was on his 87th day of his age. The Melinda divorce ritual was 87 on both sides. And again, in my book, I allude to the fact that I think they're in an arranged marriage that was literally planned with the planned pandemic for 2020, because that's what these people are doing. In the book, I explain why they work in 19-year cycles, and the most pure cipher, chaos, is 19. That's why you had 19 hijackers on 9/11. It's why you got COVID-19. Again, it's all number ritual. But in the book, this book came out before his dad died on the 258th day of the year. So again, that should just validate the book to you. The book was out before his dad died. I didn't talk about, I didn't project that his dad was going to die on the 258th day of the year, but I showed the significance of the number to him and his father because their name is William Henry Gates, which equals 258, like number of the beast. And then lo and behold, about 2 weeks after my book came out, his dad died on the 258th day of the year. And again, William Henry Gates, it's not just 258, like number of the beast, which goes with the whole vaccine. Again, he established his vaccine alliance, which is headquartered in Seattle and Switzerland, on the 258th day of his age, July 12th, 99. One of the main sponsors of Event 201. What about the 8496, you say? Again, big numbers. Jesuit is 84. Freemason is 96. The 32nd degree of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry shares the Admirum Dei Gloriam motto with the Jesuits, who have 32 sun rays on their logo. And again, this is their nation, you guys. Scottish is 32. America is 32. The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry came to power in France, where the Jesuits were created. And modern Freemasonry is a Jesuit creation anyhow. 7/4/1776 with the 32 date numerology. Last year, the Dodgers, first World Series in 32 years over the Rays, like the 32 sun rays on the Jesuit logo. Again, they control your sports the same way. But, yeah, I can just get lost in tangents all day because there's just so much to say about all this stuff and so many rituals that we documented. But I want people to understand, it's not an accident that with 65 being this huge number in the ongoing simulation and ritual and us being right around the time where the deaths get rapidly worse in the simulation, we're a little bit behind the simulation because it's near the 18-month mark where it happens. Right now, we're near the 18-month mark of the supposed pandemic. But now, the vaccine for 65-year-olds. And I hate to let you guys know, but this isn't anything new out of my mouth. I was saying this in March of 2020. People don't know. Well, I've been saying this for a lot longer than that, but I've been talking about how there's a real agenda to get rid of people in this world. It's etched in stone in Georgia and not by accident in that state. I've explained why and why I don't like the year 2024, which is quickly approaching. Been warning about that year for, closer to 10 years now. I mean, it's just like time is flying by. But, again, this baby boomer generation, you guys, this whole government is a Ponzi scheme lie and whatever cooked up equations they do to keep this whole ship afloat, this big lie where they just keep printing paper and raising debt ceilings and more interest to future generations. As Joe Biden says, what more do you need to get one of our vaccines? Or the headlines about cases being 3 times worse this year, not convincing enough about why we're mandating it and why it needs to be in your bloodstream? But while Joe Biden is saying, what more do I need to do? And we made it free. When he says we made it free, that's such a disingenuous statement. I'm sorry. Using our tax money and securing more loans that future taxpayers will owe the cost of the vaccine plus 3 times that because of the interest, putting them further into debt slavery and in the control of the banks and the tyrants who run this nation, as they eat up more and more assets of America. Because realize what they did. They did make the country poor, but they made it so life is easy. And I kind of see how that's happened in, like a family that I got to know here in Yakima. They kind of lost their work income, and then they were having trouble finding work, and then they relocate to another state, and now it's a struggle there, and it's becoming kind of a headache. But there's some of the free money that comes in, so they can hang in there. Again, I have a feeling that a lot of the country's kind of been in a similar situation, and maybe they're losing their assets, but they're hanging in there, and they're saying, well, you know what, I'm getting more time with my family, and we've actually been able to go on a trip this year and this type of thing. But we know that, these World Economic Forum types, BlackRock, they're coming in and buying up all the assets of the nation. And again, the World Economic Forum, which is the main sponsor of Event 201, where 65 million die. They were the main sponsor. Then it was Bill and Melinda Gates, the old 65 couple. 65 days they tied the knot after Bill Gates' birthday. Don't forget it. Again, Event 201, 65 million die on Melinda Gates' 65th day of her age. But here we are. And I'm just saying, what I've been saying the whole time is they got to get rid of people, and the baby boomer generation, they got to go. They got to go. They're going to be way too expensive. They can't afford to have this generation be living into their 90s. Oh, no. They got to go. And see, the pressure's coming down on them right now. Like my dad, he's born in 53. My mom's born in 52. My dad's born in 53. And he drives a bus. And I've been putting in his head, I said, when they tell you got to get that vaccine, I said, unless you want to play Russian roulette with your life, I said, you know how to live meagerly. You've always kept your bills super low. Just get your Social Security payment and just say enough's enough. He really wants to work to 70 because he'll get way more per month from Social Security. I think if he gets out right now, he gets I forget what it is. It's not a lot. It's like $1,800 a month, and then they take some out. But he can live on that. He's his whole life he's Mr. Migger. He does not spend money. So I take after him in a lot of ways when I think about it, but it's a whole new level with my dad. He's as tight as tight can be. And but he never had money either. So anyway, he wants to work 2 more years because then I think it's closer to $3,000 a month if you just work these 2 extra years. But see, I realize there's a lot of people in my dad's situation, and they're going to think just like that. I'm just going to get the vaccine. I'm going to work 2 more years. I'm going to hit 70, and I'm going to get that bigger Social Security payment. And you know what? Now that I think about it, 70. 70, you get a lot better Social Security payment if you wait till age 70. So, But anyway, I don't think he's going to do it because unless somehow they make him change his mind when I'm not there. But when I talk to him, he's like, okay, yeah, I will. I'll do that then. Because I'm saying, yeah, you don't want to do this. He sees the things too, because he understands numbers. I'm like, think about it. How can they be telling you that the cases are 3 times worse if the majority of the country is vaccinated? That shows you right there something's wrong. And all these new, more dangerous variants that are coming up. And again, what are these variants really? I've noticed a pattern of people getting flu shots and getting the flu. I mean, it's like, are we sure? Again, ever since we made that switch from... See, that wasn't part of our ancestors' health repertoire. They didn't go out and cook up some... And somebody will say, well, some ancestors got wiped out because of plague and stuff. Well, all things good and bad, but our ancestors never were fat slobs that just sat on their ass all day and let people tell them how to live their lives and what to think about every last thing either. But, and again, to me, this isn't living, being in a world where you're just controlled your whole life and told where you need to be and what room in, learning what. I mean, and that's what our lives are, you guys. I mean, if you're kind of waking up right now, you should realize that what's going on right now, it's just a progression of what's been going on. The school system is an invasion of freedom and what our lives should be. How many of you liked your upbringing in the school system? I think the majority of people would write that they didn't think that experience was as good as it could have been or it should have been. And it's not by accident. These people like taking the joy out of life. These people like just doing whatever they need to do to make sure they stay in power and control. They have the populace in their grips. School and religion, man. But yeah, all these 65s, you guys, all these 65s. And now, 18 months into the pandemic, the third shot for 65-year-olds on the day that Chris Rock, who's becoming an older black man, is telling other, and again, who's going to listen to Chris Rock the most? You know, that's how it is in this world. People listen more, resonate more with people that are the same race as them, and that's not racism. I mean, it's just go to a school that has a diverse population. You'll see. I mean, hopefully, this might be changing in modern era, but just historically, people tend to sit next to who's in their same group, same race. I mean, there's a power to race. Idris Elba at the beginning of the pandemic, he was like the first black celebrity to go out and put out that video that went kind of viral, telling people to stop spreading rumors about COVID and just trust the experts on TV. And this was real serious. And black people were more at danger. And again, it's just like where they create more fear, they probably do get more vaccines, unless people are awake to the game. And again, they're saying they want to get rid of people. You know, in the U.S., the government and the media has worked very hard over the years to demonize people of darker complexions. Years and years of fear-mongering and lies and rumor spreading and, you know, just nonstop propaganda, man, to make you believe things that really aren't true. The media worked so hard for so many years to make people think that black people are worse than other people. Every night on the news, you know, some vague description of some black guy who supposedly did some crime. You know, it's like, I don't think all the criminals in the world are black people. I know some pretty nasty white people. But again, that's why they'd always say they don't use the phrase as much as they did. Man, when I was growing up, they said it all the time. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. Sometimes they still say it, but they're using that phrase less, maybe because of the internet age and more people waking up thanks to the internet, all things good and bad. Internet's probably done a lot more bad for the world than good, but if you use it right, again, it's the tool. You don't get rid of the tool because this tool still has the power to change the world. Big things are going to have to change in it, though. These big tech companies are going to have to be destroyed, and new things will have to sprout up that really value, you know, free thought, freedom of speech. Those things are not valued in America anymore. Now it's just toe the line, comply, believe the authority. It's funny, man. It's just funny. You go to like a place like Seattle, nobody believes in religion, right? They're not taken by the religion, but they are taken so hard by the government. And you realize the government's their God. So it's interesting how it's like that. It's like the conservatives, they believe in the original society of Jesus trick, and then the other side, they've rejected that because they see that that's a load of shit. But then they can't see that their government's a load of shit, right? Whereas my life, since at least age 12, I've just been walking right down the line saying, this religion and this government and this school, this is all bullshit. I see through all of this. You know, I'm just going to be a good person. I'm going to be a critical thinker. Don't tell me what to do unless it's a great idea that's going to be good for both of us. So, but yeah, man, the jokes never end. 56-year-old Chris Rock, 142 days from his birthday. And remember, the NBA season was suspended on the 142nd day of the season on March 11th. How many years have I taught about the National Basketball Association? And 113, right? And then they shut down the league on March 11th. As I've always pointed out, there's only 2 teams in the NBA that have a connection to 113. I wrote a book about this, if you don't believe this, way before COVID happened. My first book, Letters and Numbers, is massive, and it has a chapter on sports and 113 and the meaning of the number and why it's used so much in the NBA. But Utah Jazz is 113. The only other team that has a 113 connection is Dallas. Go back and look at the box score March 11th, 2020. Here, I'll do it for you. Dallas Mavericks box score March 11th, 2020. This was the last game played in the NBA the day of the pandemic on 11/3, right? Dallas, 113, scores 113, and the pandemic was blamed on the Utah Jazz, 113. And remember, Kobe Bryant played his last career game against the Jazz, and his career mirrored Michael Jordan's. And God, what was it? I think from Jordan's last game in Philly, Kobe's hometown, to Kobe's last game against Utah Jazz was 600 and... God, is that what it was? I don't want to... Damn. Oh, I know what it was. It was Sumerian Gematria. The times 6 cipher. From Michael Jordan's last game to Kobe's last game is 678 weeks. That's what it was. And Kobe's retirement poem is Dear Basketball, which is 113 and 678 because it's just math. Just like Utah Jazz is 113 and 678. But again, this is just a huge number with the NBA and its rituals, right? And if you've read my first book, way before all this stuff happened, I'm showing how they sync sports and news together, how they bring news and sports together. The first week of this NFL season, the 4 quarterbacks that there were national news stories about who were not vaccinated, they were all losers. They all lost in week 1. The 4 unvaccinated quarterbacks, even though 2 of them were at least 2 of them were favorites in the game. And one of them has hardly any losses to his name in his NFL career. Two of them are 2 of the better young quarterbacks in the league who are both supposed to win their games. But they don't have the vaccine, and they're both losers, right? And that's how the media is portraying those who don't get the vaccine. They've been doing it very clearly since the day of Maggie Keenan, by the way, another 56 for coronavirus. Maggie Keenan, the first vaccinated person in the world. Maggie Keenan, 56, supposedly got it in Coventry with William Shakespeare. And Coventry means social isolation, meaning the people who don't get vaccinated will be isolated from society. Been talking about this stuff since day 1. How that day was Bill Gates' 42nd day of his age. It just makes me so mad that I can't get anybody else in the truth community to share the thing about 42 weeks after Elvis' birthday, he's getting the polio vaccine on live TV. I might have forgot to say that earlier when I was talking about it. I've talked about all this stuff so much. I've said it so many times, like I'm in the middle of a sentence. I can't remember if I finished the sentence because it's just come out of my mouth so many times. That's a real thing, honestly, as I do these videos. It's like, God, if I already said that, I've talked about this stuff so much. But the reason I keep doing it is I keep thinking maybe I'm going to find somebody new each night, and they actually have the ability to listen and have an attention span, and they're not one of these totally gone and lost, mindless Americans. Because again, for those people who don't get the message, really, I hope they do go get the vaccine, and I hope it's every bit of what it's supposed to be in Utopia with the plan to reduce big time. In the TV show Utopia, which Amazon remade, again about billionaires who want to depopulate the world with a virus and a vaccine, they want to get the Earth's population down to 500 million, just like what's etched on the Georgia Guidestones that have been there since March 22nd, 1980. They were actually put up at the end of 79, but then they were covered up that whole time. They were revealed on March 22nd, 1980. But the end of 79, Society of Jesus, Knights Templar. Pandemic on 79th day of Fauci's 79th age. But the first rule etched on those massive stone pillars in Georgia is to reduce the Earth's population to 500 million. And the reason I've told people that they should be taken seriously is because they're in Georgia. And Georgia has that incriminating Gematria 44. That's a number associated with death and killing. The number 4 comes from the Far East. By the way, Georgia's the 4th state in order of statehood. 4 is associated with death. 44 is the rep digit of 4. Words like kill are 44. Cancer is 44. Chemo is 44. Remember, we said Georgia would go for Biden on Jimmy Carter's 44th day of his age. That's exactly what happened. And again, they're comparing not Georgia, but Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden. Their presidencies are so similar. Gas prices are way up, and they mishandled international things that led to crises. Afghanistan, the Iranian hostage crisis. But the thing about 44 is genocide is 44. And what I've always said is, man, 2024, the year 2024, is 44 years after those things were unveiled. And, that number is related with prophecy. Prophet is 44. And 4 is also related to time. It's related to death and time. Again, the 4 seasons, 4 quadrants of time, spring, summer, fall, winter. But yeah, those things are in Georgia, and they're going to turn 44 years old. And again, this whole vaccine is a military operation. Remember, Operation Warp Speed. You see how military's got the 107 in it? You see how Warp Speed is 10744, military, 10744. The last time there was a pandemic came out of a military base after World War. But the first vaccine company approved is Pfizer, which is also 44, right? And now they're going to be the first one with a 3rd dose. And again, 356, coronavirus 56, COVID vaccine 56 on the 263rd day of the year, the 56th prime. I forgot to say, Nancy Pelosi, look up her birthday. Nancy Pelosi is a 56. Her name's also 133 and 52, like government, you know. But Nancy Pelosi's birthday is March 26, 26/3, 263, the 56th prime. You know, she's Miss Washington, D.C., Miss Government, Catholic. D.C.'s all Catholic and Jewish. Protestant Reformation, you know, did not work. I realized that's why they did that with Adolf Hitler, too. Adolf Hitler was a huge Jesuit puppet. They said Adolf Hitler died at 56 from suicide, but his body was never found. Adolf Hitler, 56. You know, they say he was really taken to Argentina and protected by the Catholic Church and Jesuits, where, coincidentally, the first Jesuit pope's from Argentina. But I get that's the joke now about Adolf Hitler, the Jew hater from Germany, because Martin Luther, who led the Protestant Reformation, was from Germany. So that's why North Dakota, where my mom's from, is full of Lutherans, because there's a lot of Germans there in the Midwest. But yeah, I get it now. Adolf Hitler is just a big Jesuit joke. Because again, I just hate how school. If you paid attention in school, you realize nothing they were teaching us made any sense. You're like, because if you actually thought about it, you'd be like, wait a minute, dude. You mean to tell me a guy was on horseback, just riding down the east coast of America with his torchlight in the air, and he just ignited the revolution? I mean, come on, man. Imagine me just going through the horseback with the torch in the air in the countryside of Yakima. I mean, you think the revolution's going to start? I mean, it's just bullshit. Christopher Columbus discovers a land where people already lived. Okay, how does that make sense? How do any of these stories make sense? This guy, I'm on Sunday when I'm not at bullshit school, I'm supposed to go to Sunday school, more school, and learn about people living inside of whales and whatnot. I mean, come on, man. This dude was talking to a burning bush. That probably meant he was burning the ganja. It's all misinterpreted. So, anyway. These numbers, you guys. You see the 56-187? Look at Paris, France, where the Jesuits are from. 56-187. Look at Washington, D.C., where they operate out of. Look at Anthony Fauci, who's on all sides of every issue, you know. The same numbers. And the thing about 187 is it's associated with homicide, right? This is who the Jesuits are. They're killers. Remember, Society of Jesus is 187. What's wild is if you write out arsenic poisoning, it's 187, right? And this is what the Jesuits are known for killing with. Poisoning. And when you get killed by arsenic, it looks like you died from severe flu. So think about that. All the celebrities that have died from COVID. Man, with one of these tests where you can make anything positive for COVID, even a banana, as was proven in the time of the pandemic. By the way, CNN saying you shouldn't watch anything online. Again, there's information online from other countries that come from their leaders, you know, calling out things that are wrong with this stuff, and our news won't cover it. So, you know, there was a world leader who tested like a fruit sample and different animal samples and got these positive tests from the send-in, but when they sent them in, they just said that they were from human species. So again, he said, "How can this not be bullshit? Look, that's how. I mean, they're saying anything is a positive test." But yeah, I wonder how many people have been poisoned to death and it just blamed on COVID, and then some forced test that said, "Oh, see, yeah, they died from COVID." But the thing about arsenic, you guys, with Jesus and Society of Jesus 187, arsenic in the most pure cipher is 33, and the 33rd element on the periodic table is arsenic, right? And look at this. Arsenic atomic weight 74, right? It's 74. And it's just so weird. It's so weird because this is the number. Right away when I looked into this is why I knew that what was in Manly P. Hall's book was something. The word Gematria, which is the practice of coining numbers into words, is 74, right? English is 74. When you just use the alphabetic order, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, it's called simple English Gematria. Simple is 74. And but here's what made me realize it wasn't that was interesting, but this is what made me realize that there's no way this is a coincidence. Oh, by the way, holiday is also 74. This nation's birthday 74, but still that wasn't it. The thing that made me go like, okay, this is not a coincidence is the fact that Jesus was 74, cross was 74, Messiah was 74, gospels 74, parables is 74, Jewish is 74. I mean, I was in disbelief when I started researching this and found these things out because I did everything by hand in a notebook. And I would see this and I'd go back and I'd re-add it up like 10 straight times because I was like, this can't be. But I was like, it is. And I was like, this is not a coincidence. Our language is literally encoded. And when I saw that Jewish was 74 and they say Jesus is from Judea, again, look at the list, you guys. Jesus, cross, Messiah, gospel, parables, Jewish, they're all 74. And this is a Jewish practice, which comes from Jewish mysticism, which, by the way, equals 201, like the Jesuits are Catholic and Jewish. Like pretty much everything in D.C. is. And again, remember what they did last year. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died on September 18th, 2020. Rosh Hashanah, 187 days after her birthday. Washington, D.C., 187. Society of Jesus, 187. She died on the Jewish New Year and was replaced by the Catholic Amy Coney Barrett. You know what I mean? Jewish Catholic. Jesuit. But when I saw this, I was like, okay, who would encode the language like this? And that's why the Catholic Church has always been one of my top suspects. I was like, okay, it's clearly synced up with the calendar. You know, the Catholic... When I first started, I did not realize that the English language was credited to a Catholic monk Burforth. But I knew the calendar was Catholic. So, you know... And then you just add on to the list, this is occult knowledge, meaning it's hidden. Occult is 74. Masonic, secret society, modern Freemasonry created by the Jesuits, Masonic 74. You have to believe in God to be a Mason. Jews write God, G-D. G is the seventh letter, D is the fourth, 7-4. You know, you got to believe in God to be a Mason, Masonic 74, Jesus 74. A lot of Masons in the U.S. are Christians, but Masonry goes through all religions. They say the Scottish Rite's the most Jewish branch of Freemasonry. But yeah, think about it. Here we are in the English-speaking nation, right? And by the way, when I first began, I knew this cipher and one other one. The alphabetic order with the rules numerology. Notice Jesus is 11 that way, the master number. Pope is 11 when you run the alphabetic order in reverse with the rules numerology. But the only other cipher I knew back then was Independence Day. 74 and the most pure cipher according to Manly P. Hall. I was like, whoa. And again, you guys, this is what's wrong with humanity. When I first learned that, Holiday 74, Independence Day 74, I had a post like that on my Facebook page. I said, look at this knowledge I just learned. Isn't it interesting that our nation's birthday is 7-4, and if you write out holiday, it's 74, and if you write out Independence Day but use numerology, it's 74? I said, I'd write, doesn't that seem way beyond coincidence? And you wouldn't believe the way people would just start talking shit. Well, maybe you would. But I was just like, what the hell is wrong with people? But what else was bothersome is that some people didn't leave comments, but then they called me and I hadn't talked to them in a while. They'd be like, Zach, are you okay? One woman who I knew from when we were in grad school together, she goes, Zach, I'm a little bit worried because what you wrote today just reminds me like of schizophrenia. And I was like, what? I mean, what I wrote that day was something like that. It might have been the Jesus gospel parables, and I wrote, like, think about it. The story of Jesus is the gospel. He speaks in parables. He dies on the cross. Oh, and then I remember I realized something else around that time. I was like, look at that. Out of the 50 states, only the 33rd state, Oregon, sums to 74. And Oregon's abbreviated OR, 33, and Oregon is 74. Out of the 50 states, if you use both these ciphers, well, actually, I'm not sure I forget on the most pure cipher, but out of the 50 states, if you just use the most simple cipher, only one sums to 74, and it's Oregon, the 33rd state in statehood, and again, OR's 33. So I started to look at things like that, and I was like, weird. So the history of the nation pays tribute to 33 and 74. They say Jesus on the cross at 33. You look at the periodic table, which is science, and the 33rd element's arsenic, and again, its atomic mass is 74. it is 0.9216, but still 74 the starting digits, right? I'm still perplexed about these things. I'm like, okay. I need to do a video. That's right. I need to do okay. Young Decoder wants me to do a video with him. I just don't know what video. I did it one time before, and he was just talking the whole time. I was like, what's he need me here on here for? Does he just want me on for like some kind of street cred? He's just got his own presentation. I don't even need to say anything. Getting punked by this 16-year-old. But and I don't mean anything by that. I like him. He's a smart guy. But yeah, you know what we should do? We should go on and do an episode on science, because this kid, he's brilliant when it comes to science. He knows the stuff there. So, but yeah, just the whole 74-33 thing. I know the Jesuits are putting their stamp on everything in the world. Right now, what are they calling science? Science is just believing on TV and, the news networks that are sponsored by Pfizer to just take all their advice and say that the science says the vaccine's great, even though the cases are way up and there's way deadlier variants in the world this year. This thing just won't go away. It just keeps getting worse. That's why we need even more vaccines and more masks. Like, wait a minute. We need a new tribe leader. This tribe leader is way off the mark. We're not going to keep doing more of the same shit, especially when it's from criminal Pfizer who already killed half of our tribe over the last 10 years. And that's probably not far off from the truth. Probably a lot of premature deaths thanks to the nice man-made products of Pfizer, because we went away from nature. By the way, I want to point something out about my book. I was proud that it had a 5-star review for a very long time, but I hate how this programming in society and just trolling. But notice how very recently I was given 2 1-star reviews that both accused me of being a schizophrenic. They both came in it must be just barely below this, but they were just days apart, and then it took the 5-star review away from the book. Unless it got reviewed. Maybe enough people clicked report abuse. Okay. Wow. Amazon actually took down one of those reviews. It was going on and on about this book just being for schizophrenics, but the review's gone. I'm amazed that Amazon took that off. I didn't even complain about it. Other people must have. Huh. But one of them's still up. Anyway, there were 2 left like that, days apart from each other, and it sunk the review, but what bothers me is I know that they're trolls, right? I know that they're trolls in just writing that. But I hate how many people in society, because of this kind of programming, right? That's why the trolling does what it does. It repeats like just baseless, thoughtless stereotypes that somehow many people have latched onto. Like how you could read somebody's post showing possibly a numerical... And I was explaining back then that this was something that came from... Jewish mysticism, and this was important to the Hebrew language, and still people reading my posts would say to me that I sounded schizophrenic, and it's just like, okay, is schizophrenic the definition of intelligence then? And part of me wonders about that, because they say that's what went on back in the day. They'd give people lobotomies that were intelligent people, and they'd accuse them of being schizophrenics. Maybe those were the people back then that saw through the societal bullshit. They'd say, oh my God, you're fucking crazy. Strap him up and let's cut out part of his brain. You know what I mean? But I just hate how society's this way. And because society is this way, at the end of the day, if there's a baby boomer out there that started to watch this and turned it off, I hope they go get the 3rd shot, and I hope they're out of here ASAP. Because I don't want to pay any more taxes into this Ponzi scheme. I don't want this Ponzi scheme to last another day, and I don't want this trash that populates humanity. And I understand they're trash because they were made this way by the system, but still, they're still trash. They were made into trash, and they've never made an iota effort to fix the trash that they've been made into by this system. They're content with being trash, and they should know they're trash. And yeah, they just need to be eradicated, We got an infestation of shitty people. But speaking of it, here's Jeff Bailey. I would give this one -3 stars. The author is either a resident of some rubber room or he likes playing with numbers. Cavalierly used assorted Gematria to try to prove his Nostradamus wannabe paranoid notions of world events. By the way, you guys, look up the predictions that Nostradamus ever hit. I'm sorry, man. Time to throw that name away from history, because none of that shit's impressive. Go see what we've done in the time I've been here. Predictions galore. So, and I don't know he's writing that, because I don't really do that in the book. But it's just some trash-talking troll. But Yeah, I just hate how society's been programmed also to dismiss the truth as schizophrenic. I was called a schizophrenic for questioning 9/11 as an 18-year-old. I never had my mental health questioned ever in my life. I was always respected by almost everybody until after 9/11. I lost a lot of people because of 9/11 and questioning 9/11, and it's just pathetic, man. It's pathetic because I've known the whole time I'm not wrong. I'm making logical points based in actual science. And these idiots are just believing whatever they're told that doesn't make any fucking sense. And then they're calling people like me schizophrenics. But hold on, let's read the rest of this idiot's comment. To try to prove, am I trying to prove anything? I'm sorry. If you read my book and look at everything that's happened since, there can be no doubt, you know? There can be no doubt. Prove his Nostradamus wannabe paranoid notions of world events. However, if you like fragmented number displays and obsessed with certain numbers and years, particularly 1968, yeah, again, everyone should look at what happened in 1968. Again, tell me how it's a coincidence that George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones and his birthday to 9/11 is 68 days. July 6th is his birthday, the 187th day of the year. To September 11th, span of 68 days every year. 9/11, World Trade Center construction, 2001 A Space Odyssey, plus the whole NFL thing, New York Jets. Boeing debuted their first jumbo jetliner. Boeing up in Seattle, just like Magnus and Klemenkic Associates. Seattle, Washington, 68. Terror, 68. CIA, 68. Remember what they just did with Kabul in the massive 68 ritual? Afghanistan, 9/11. It's just, again, what I hate about the 8 years is I haven't gotten a clown like this who's ever tried to have a real debate. They'll just talk shit, but they'll never call in and try to get away with saying this because they know they'd never win, you know? And that's why these people are fucking losers that need a bullet in the head. And that's not an over-exaggeration. That's what they need. They need a bullet in the head. They need to be decomposing as fertilizer. It'll be the first positive use they've ever had on this earth in their life. Decomposing, feeding the worms. Finally doing something for the world. Because up until this moment, they've all been sorry sacks of shit, self-promoted, hating truth, marching along to tyranny, helping empower tyranny. Again, that's what all these people have been. All of my critics, which has been almost everybody in my life, what they've been are slaves to this tyranny, helping build about what's now here that's going to ruin life like never before seen for the younger generations, you know? And I knew this all along, and they've been calling me names and schizophrenic. So honestly, that's what I want to say at the end. For all these people that are going out and getting the vaccine and marching along, maybe there is a God, you know? Maybe there is a God after all. And I don't say that as an atheist or even an agnostic. I do think that there is a God. But maybe finally this is God actually helping what needs to come about. This is coming from a very evil gang, but you know what? They've raised a very evil people, and maybe this is their mistake. Maybe getting rid of the masses and leaving a smaller group to actually, well, it remains to be seen, but I feel like if there were less people in the way, things could actually get done. It's these slave masses that are allowing all this shit to happen. They're the ones filling out all the military and police. Granted, it could be bad. It could be that the survivors after they wipe out people are just as bad, but anyway, something's got to change, you guys. People got to go. You know, the earth is a cesspool full of litter, and it needs to be cleaned up, man. These people are scum, and I know they are. And a lot of you guys don't realize this because you haven't been awake, and you were probably part of the problem not that long ago, to be perfectly frank. You know, you were marching along to the tyranny, not seeing what was wrong with it, putting yellow stickers on the back of your car to support illegal wars. And you guys have all been a huge part of the problem. All of you empowered the tyranny, marched along with the tyranny. And you really should have seen it a long time ago. You know, not woken up when Kobe Bryant died. Like that even mattered. But yeah, I'm telling you, it's not an accident. It's not an accident that the 65-year-olds are approved. They got to get rid of this baby boomer generation, and a lot of them are going to get it. So, and realize it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like all of them are just going to die, but you're going to keep hearing the same kind of stories you've been hearing, and we'll see what it looks like in a handful of years from now, and we'll see how many more vaccines there are. This is the third. I'd worry even more about the fourth. Again, that's the number associated with death. But the third is, there's reason to, this third is very ritualistic. The 263rd day of the year, the 56th prime, and the third dose. I'll show you where this all comes from with 3. We like 3. It's the Abrahamic religions. When you write out 3, it's 56 and 79. You see that? 3 Abrahamic religions. When you write out Society of Jesus, it's 56 and 79. You see the 56 and the 187? When you write out Abrahamic, it's 56 and 187. And again, the Abrahamic religions are all based in the Torah, which is 187 chapters long. And shout out to Marco, who caught recently that there were 56 children that Adam and Eve had. So that's the beginning of the story. Adam and Eve and their 56 children. 187 chapters in the Torah. Again, all these numbers come from the Bible, and that's why all their rituals are biblical. And for another 56, the Bible written by Shakespeare, King James Bible 56, you see that? Shakespeare, or it's not Shakespeare, it's William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare's got the 187.79 in it, like Society of Jesus. And remember, they said the first man in the world to get the vaccine was William Shakespeare. In Coventry, William Shakespeare, the wordsmith, Coventry, social isolation, about being excluded. Yeah, it's like Russian roulette to be a part of society. I don't think that, I think it's a luck of the draw with the vaccines. And but yeah, if you want to be part of society, you got to comply with their game, right? And a lot of people want to comply. They like money, they like their job enough, and they like hating on the truth. Like if Jeff Bailey's a real person. Again, yeah, Jeff Bailey, my response to you is you got to be a complete moron. Only a complete moron can deny what's in the book. I'll tell you that much. And if you doubt it, you should read it yourself. I made it free. No excuses. You can download it for free as an ebook. It's on my Patreon page, free download. You might have to scroll back to the July 4th post. That was the last time I could re-upload it again. Yeah, I'll re-upload it to my Patreon for free. Then you don't have to scroll back through the post, but it's there if you can just take a few seconds to scroll back. And it's also posted on there, in the spring, and then again at Christmas time. I've made it an ebook, a free ebook online since last Christmas. Thought since people like to give on Christmas, be a good thing to give my book for free 3 months after it came out. But yeah, there's no way you could read my book and then pay attention to what goes on and deny it. Especially, when I put out the second edition of this, there's a million more examples that have happened since I finished it over a year ago. I mean, they're just the same undeniable pattern. And again, you guys, it's the way that they put the numbers together in rituals. The 142nd day of the season, the NBA shut down. And you see how today's 142 days from Chris Rock's birthday while he's 56? Again, we made money off this in the rigged NBA. Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz is who the pandemic was blamed on. And Utah paid $350 if you bet 100. 56 days after Rudy Gobert's birthday, they were major underdogs in this game in 2020. They paid, if you bet, that was the ratio. If you bet 100, they paid $350 that night. Some books, it might have been 300. But still, that's a great payout. And we knew it was lock city for Utah that night because if they won, they were going to become 5-6 in what they called the NBA bubble. And we were already documenting how they were doing all these coronavirus rituals and how it's just all a bunch of scripted bullshit. But they even called the thing the NBA bubble, which equals 56. And remember, it ended up being in Florida, down where the Miami Heat were, who lost to LeBron, King James Bible 56, coronavirus season, biblical riddles. But again, the NBA was locked down on the 142nd day of the season. And remember how I was talking about the NBA in 113? Look at coronavirus pandemic. We talked about it a lot with 94 and Bill Gates and all the stuff he did with 94. Oh, including his decade of vaccines was declared on his 94th day of his age, where he said, in 10 years, I want to push to vaccinate the world, which he got exactly 10 years later in January. Janice Gates. In Utopia, the conspiracy to kill the world with a virus and a vaccine is called Janus. Isn't that nice? But coronavirus pandemic 113, like the National Basketball Association. Remember, we just said Kobe Bryant's 113. He was the big tragedy at the time COVID was breaking in the news. Kobe Bryant 113. And where did they bury him? In Corona Del Mar, which equals 56 and 70, just like coronavirus, like COVID vaccine. You see? Is Kobe even really dead? He was traveling from Catholic Mass, which equals 201. That Jesuit number. You know what I mean? They said he crashed in the middle of They said they crashed on the 4200 block, even though he crashed in a dirt field. All the mainstream reported that. We documented at the time. We're like, how do you crash on the 4200 block when you crash in a field? I mean, come on. They're just reporting numbers, man. Jesuit ritual. Jesuits 42, like Catholic Mass. The Jesuit order 201. But yeah, again, the number rituals, none of it's a coincidence. And to close out here, let's listen to old Bill Gates. We're going to watch the beginning of his 2010 TED Talk. I'm just going to play it from the beginning so you can get the full context. I'm not going to edit anything. I'm just going to play the video right from the TED Talk website. This is their website. TED, Ideas Worth Spreading. Bill Gates, this is January 2000, excuse me. I take it back. This is February of 2010. It should put that up on the screen. February of 2010, days after declaring his decade of vaccines from Davos, Switzerland, on his 94th day of his age, Mr. 94. Again, that was his big breakout year too, 94. But here, the year his mom died. His mom died in 94. His dad died at age 94. Married to Melinda on the first day of 94. But listen to this guy. Listen to him. We're going to have to listen to, I think, about 5 minutes here, but I don't want people saying I took it out of context. I just want you to hear. It's undeniable what he says. And don't forget Inferno, starring Tom Hanks, Mr. Sleepless in Seattle, that movie about the billionaire wanting to depopulate the virus. It came out on Bill Gates' birthday, 2016. The Jesuits created in the 16th century. SJ, what they abbreviate for Society of Jesus, equals 16. But listen to this guy. Even TED Talk's got to give an ad. Come on, man.
I'm going to talk today about energy and climate. And that might seem a bit surprising because my full-time work at the foundation is mostly about vaccines and seed.
There it is, February 2010. This is days after his decade of vaccines. By the way, with regards to climate change, this is a big thing too. Climate change is also 56 in the most pure cipher. Pope Francis wrote his encyclical about what to do about coronavirus and climate change for Fratelli Tutti, which is 56. Again, look it up. This is done in the time of the pandemic. Pope Francis on what to do about coronavirus and climate change, right? They're all 56 in the most pure cipher. And again, Pope's got that 56 connection too. The Jesuits served the Pope. But let's listen from here on out. Okay. Climate and innovating to zero. Here we go.
About the things that we need to invent and deliver to help the poorest 2 billion live better lives. But energy and climate are extremely important to these people. In fact, more important than to anyone else on the planet. The climate getting worse means that many years their crops won't grow. There'll be too much rain, not enough rain. Things will change in ways that their fragile environment simply can't support. And that leads to starvation, it leads to uncertainty, it leads to unrest. So the climate changes will be terrible for them. Also, the price of energy is very important to them. In fact, if you could pick just one thing to lower the price of to reduce poverty, by far you would pick energy. Now, the price of energy has come down over time. Advanced civilization is based on advances in energy. The coal revolution fueled the Industrial Revolution, and even in the 1900s, we've seen a very rapid decline in the price of electricity. That's why we have refrigerators, air conditioning. We can make modern materials and do so many things. And so we're in a wonderful situation with electricity in the rich world. But as we make it cheaper, and let's go for making it twice as cheap, we need to meet a new constraint. And that constraint has to do with CO2. CO2 is warming the planet. And the equation on CO2 is actually a very straightforward one. If you sum up the CO2 that gets emitted, that leads to a temperature increase. And that temperature increase leads to some very negative effects. The effects on the weather, perhaps worse, the indirect effects in that the natural ecosystems can't adjust to these rapid changes, and so you get ecosystem collapses. Now, the exact amount of how you map from a certain increase in of CO2 to what temperature will be and where the positive feedbacks are, there's some uncertainty there, but not very much. And there's certainly uncertainty about how bad those effects will be, but they will be extremely bad. I asked the top scientists on this several times, do we really have to get down to near zero? Can't we just, cut it in half or a quarter? And the answer is that until we get near to zero, the temperature will continue to rise. And so that's a big challenge. It's very different than saying, we're a 12-foot high truck trying to get under a 10-foot bridge and we can just sort of squeeze under. This is something that has to get to zero. Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons.
Okay, he hasn't even gotten to the part yet, but it's coming up. But I got to make a point about this. If you've read my first book, Why There's 26 Letters in the English Alphabet, I make a big point about carbon and 26, right? I wasn't aware of this TED Talk when I wrote it. Or maybe I think I had seen this TED Talk, but I forgot about this detail in there. But in the most pure cipher, carbon is 26. They say carbon's the God particle. Well, now they have something that they call the God particle, but carbon's in everything, like God's in everything. God, in the most simple cipher, is 26. Like in Hebrew, the value of the four-letter name of God equals 26. And again, we got a 26-letter alphabet. This entire code comes from Kabbalah. Kabbalah says God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. Letter 26, God 26. He's telling you 26 billion tons of carbon. And again, when you learn this code, you just start to realize it's like, okay, are authorities just telling us shit that we're just supposed to accept? I don't know how to verify anything that they're telling me. It's like that's their game. Controlling like the narrative and then making it so it's like, you don't have the means to prove us wrong. Some flat earther out there is going, see, that's why the Earth's flat. Anything's possible. Again, I can't explain sunsets and sunrise on a flat earth, and it's just not worth the time, in my opinion, in light of the fact that we're staring down a shotgun barrel from tyranny like I was telling you guys when this flat earth psyop hit us. But anyway, let's get back to Bill Gates, and his quote is coming up. And watch for the 6.8 billion he's about to give us, too, with that 6.8. We talked a lot about 68. That's coming here in a few seconds.
For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we
again, he's talking about innovating to zero, how we have to reduce in these categories. And his first way, the first thing he talked about is population reduction. And his first thing in that list was vaccines. He also had, here, let me go back and hear his exact wording because it reminded that his dad is one of the co-founders of Planned Parenthood. Hold on, let's get that quote one more time.
Rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
Okay, so again, this is literally days after he just declared a decade of vaccines, right? He said, in 10 years, I want there to be this push to vaccinate the entire world, okay? And now he's coming out a little bit more clear with his thoughts. We got to innovate to zero. We have to get down in all these categories. One of them is going to have to get close to zero. That doesn't have to be humanity. But, he talks about reducing the population by 10 to 15%. And his first way is with vaccines, and then the thing that's like Planned Parenthood, which his dad used to run. And again, there's an article written about him and Oprah Winfrey and a few other rich people, maybe 10 years ago, called The Good Club. Look it up. Look up Bill Gates, Oprah, Good Club. They were having meetings over population control. And this is, this has been a topic of the rich ruling class. The Good Club. The Good Club. May 26th, 2009. May 30th, 2009. But yeah, this is Bill Gates, Oprah, some other New World Order pawn types. And yeah, I just think about how my sister's under such a spell, man, and she doesn't want to get out of it. I mean, she's all vaccinated. She vaccinated all of her kids. It's sad, but she's just been worshiping at the altar of Oprah for so long. I'm sure Oprah told her to get the vaccine. Yeah, so, but just the timeline, the impossible timeline, and the impossible Gematria connections. Decade of vaccines, right where we began. 65. Pandemic 65. 65 million die in the Event 201 simulation. William Henry Gates 201. Melinda, her 65th day of her age, is the simulation where 65 million die. The vaccine goes live on his 42nd day of being 65 years old, when vaccine's 42. I mean, it's so obvious that these are rituals. And it's so obvious that he's the chosen puppet because his birthday is connected to Jonas Salk, who's known as the godsend when it comes to vaccines, who saved us from polio. And looking back, that's probably a huge load of shit. Again, it came out on March 26, 26/3, 263, the 56 prime. 56 is the year it blew. Well, in 55, they had to stop it because it was killing people, and then they brought it back at the end of 56 with the Elvis stunt, who recorded at Sun Record Studios with Sun Tzu in The Art of War. Not really. That wasn't really. Should have been the name of his band. Would have been even more obvious. But, yeah, it's too bad, man. Because I've thought, like, man, I've been fortunate. A lot of people are getting older. I got a lot of people that haven't taken care of themselves, but they're still living. I don't know if that's going to be the case in a few years. I'm pretty sure that a lot of my mom's siblings have been vaccinated, and they're all these early baby boomer age. My mom, she just turned 69 in September. Well, we're still just days ago she turned 69. My dad, he'll turn 69 in April. And, her siblings are all packed in around there. A lot of kids, one after the next. But, yeah, most of them, and it's too bad because I think about it. And again, it's just like my heart, like you guys, from doing this and like, from speaking out and telling people what's up and just getting nothing but shit, it's made my, like, heart blacker for sure. And like like before I'd feel more, it's still sad, but I'd feel more sad. But I think about how my family, man, they've mostly all just shit on me since I started sharing this information too. Well, just to tell you a family story. When I first began sharing this work back in 2013, and I just shared on my social media, that's where I first began posting. We had a family page, all of my mom's siblings and all that family that's on there on Facebook. They had their own private family page where they'd share photos and stuff. It was called the Strawberry Patch, right? The same aunt who runs that's the same aunt who now, got grandma vaccinated. But, when I was sharing this information at first, I shared some of it in there. And I know my family's like not even the best audience for it because all they really want to do is just drink and have a good time. I mean, just like a lot of Americans, just like be thoughtless, entertained. Maybe they party more than I don't know. Americans like to party too, but yeah, just again, my mom's family, it's like mostly low educated, hard workers that like to drink and have a good time when they're not working, right? That's like them. And that probably describes a lot of people in the nation. But they're not intellectual, and they'd make fun of, like I already know, but I just want to share it with them anyway. It's like, come on, somebody tell me this isn't. So my aunt who manages the page, she just blocked me from the page and started saying I was a crazy person. She didn't even want me to post about stuff like that. You know what I mean? She was making fun of me, how stupid I sounded, and I was just like, wow, I got blocked from my own family page for just sharing something that I thought was interesting. Okay. She was also mad, though. If she was out there listening, she'd be like, you're not telling the other part of the story. The other part of the story is that they posted a picture of my mom's dad, who would have been my grandpa. He died when I was young. Leo. I only got to know one grandpa. I didn't get to know him that much. He lived in North Dakota. I hardly ever saw him. I was around him for probably all of 24 hours in my entire life. But I still remember him. He was a memorable character from the little bit I got to see him. But somebody posted a picture of him in the Navy, and the way he was posed just seemed so feminine to me. And I wrote on the social media, I said, has anybody ever thought that maybe Grandpa was like closeted? Because you think about it, he had almost all girls, and the first guy he had was gay, which is true. His first son is gay. There was two other boys, they're not gay, but the first one's gay, and he's also a major bitch. God, talk about one of the biggest shit talkers in my family. And it's funny, before he came out as gay, well, he hasn't exactly came out. He's never admitted he's gay, but he's been living with a man and going everywhere with a man that lived together for like 15 years now. But, well, it hasn't been that long. Probably a little bit more than 10 years. It's getting close to 15. But that caused a huge strife in the siblings, because some of them stopped talking to him and thought it was so terrible. But like, to me, I didn't care. I was like, I always knew he was a bitch. He was so feminine, man. He was. He said something to me when I was a kid, and plus his oldest son was a bitch. The only time I ever had a black eye in my life was because of his son. His son kicked me in the face. We're about the same age. He kicked me in the face when I was 6 years old while I was sleeping. I was sleeping on the floor at their house, and for whatever reason, he kicked me in the face. He was mad about something earlier in the day that I didn't know about. Kicked me while I was sleeping, my own cousin. Had a big old black eye. And what pissed me off is one of my uncles saw me as a little kid. He said, oh, we know who the tougher one is. And then he like gave my other cousin a high five. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, dude, he kicked me in my face, man. That's not tough. But yeah, it just, again, my family, man. That's why if they're all going to go out and get the vax, it might be good riddance anyway. And I hate to say it, but God, it's just like... We don't have any people that are trying to save the world in this family, I'll tell you that much. They're just trying to drink another Coors Light, another Miller, another Bud. But, yeah, I mean, I just think back about the last 8 years of doing this and just like how it started, and, just watching everything come true and people still not wake up. And I'm just thinking like, maybe somehow their agenda's for the best. Maybe they really all got to go, man. They all gotta go. Sorry, my heart dried up for all these people that hate the truth, man. I got nothing but bullets for these people. So, and it's a lot of them. I can't think of many people that are anything but that. All I can think of is a lot of haters and shit talkers and people that'll accuse you of being a schizophrenic. Look at them all now rolling up their sleeves for daddy. They all need Big Brother in their life. Bunch of losers. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, again, go check out the timeline. I know the exact dates. You think I lied about a single date tonight? I know all the dates. Go back and look these things up. Go tell me Bill Gates' birthday is not October 28th, 1955. I know it is. But October 28th, 2009 would have been his last birthday before January 29th, 2010. This day is 93 days after his birthday. If you count the span of days, it's his 94th day of his age. Tell you why both numbers matter. Coronavirus pandemic, remember, is 94 like Seattle, Washington. And every 94 was everything for him. His mother's death, his marriage, big breakout year as the big rich tech guy. Amazon came out that year, which is clearly all part of this same Jesuit cabal. Amazon took over the world last year while Jeff Bezos was 56 years old. But again, Davos, Switzerland, where he gave his speech, again, is 94, just like Seattle, Washington. And notice they're both 68 as well, as he says there's 6.8 billion people. The first thing he's talking about that we need to reduce closer to zero. And by the way, I spelled Washington wrong, but it's still got the right letters. Seattle, Washington, same thing. It's all mathematics, you guys. 68. That's why so many things went down in 68. I think I've said it all, man. I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I said enough, man. It's a long enough stream. There's enough information. I don't think I did the best job of putting it all together. Too many numbers for a lot of people. I already know that, but if you listened and paid attention, I still got all the points I probably needed to make out there. So yeah, I'd encourage anybody who can't afford a book to download my ebook and just read the beginning of it. Just see what's going on in this nation. These are all agendas, all clearly synced up. You wouldn't believe how perfect 9/11 and coronavirus come together. Remember World Trade Center 94? You would not believe it. 18 months, the big number in the simulation, the 18-month anniversary of our pandemic is 9/11. These people aren't playing, man. And also, just a book outside of my own. For all of you who think the FDA has any credibility, please read Marion Nestle's Food Politics. And I always wonder about the author, too. I'm like, really? Her name is Nestle? But still, she shows you how corrupt the FDA is. It's been known for a long time. I noticed that book's out of print now. If you want to buy it, it costs like around $40 because you got to find a used copy that's out there. But the book's been out for about 20 years, so... Okay. Yeah, and again, you guys, part of the reason I'm not taking calls is just because anytime I pick up the phone, people are calling in about sports games, and it's just like, can we get callers on topic to add to the conversation? Not just take it in some totally different direction. It's like they weren't even paying. It's just so anyway. It's hard to take calls, you guys, because I just can't get a call on topic, man. So if you were hoping I was going to take some calls, I don't know, man. TFR is enough calls for the week for me these days. I just can't get anybody to call in on topic. It's really annoying. But sometimes I think it's trolling too. The most active people in this community are the trolls. Remember, there was a paid-for troll last time I went to speak on the corner in Seattle down by Pike's Place. They had a paid-for agent that sat there all day. And with his speaker and his computer and his fold-out table, and drowned me out to the tunes of Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl, which just happens to equal 201. So I couldn't talk about Event 201. Again, you guys, I need this community to work harder than the trolls and the people who try to sabotage it. And that shouldn't be that hard, because I imagine the team of trolls that go 24/7, 365 are probably around 10 in number, because they work at all hours, all days. So they have to be in different time zones, but I imagine there's probably like 10 of them. It's just they have a bigger impact on this movement than the thousands of people who follow, and that's a problem. So, again, they would be drowned out and flooded out if just more people were more active in the ways I wish they were. And I realize at the end of the day, the reason a lot of you guys aren't that active, but just take in the information, is because you're just too busy with work and school and family. And again, that is a big problem. They got us all so busy, the way they've set up our lifestyle. which again is why this system needs to collapse. This isn't the way the world's supposed to be. It's like today when I was at Tim's house. I was like, imagine that this is just us, man. Like, this is our life. We don't have to pay taxes and stuff. We have our shelter. You got your big garden. You need more people to help you in the garden. We go build another hut over there in that spot in the lot. And then we just sit here and we share this garden. We look out for each other. I mean, and then we got plenty of free time in the day. Token Tim can smoke his bowls, have conversations about topics. All we got to do is make sure that our shelter's all right and our food supply's there. That's the day. But our days aren't like that. Our days are all disjointed. Child's being sent off to the school here. Parents are going off to these different jobs here. And again, you just see that everything that happens in society from it, kids raised by the system. The school's the system, man. They even told you they're dropping off the same food for the school's cafeteria, and then they're dropping off that same nasty ass food and plastic cheese down at the prison. They're feeding your kids the same shit they're feeding the prisoners. I mean, that really does say a lot about the nation. Not to mention, my whole lifetime, there's always been a comparison between the rate we build schools and the rate we build prisons. Really, they're the same thing. School's a kind of a voluntary prison that we go to. In a room for most of a day, learning from some asshole about some bullshit, and just getting our minds all fucked up, man. Losing all of our creativity and just learning to follow instructions, or else. But that's why this whole system just got to collapse and crumble, man. Humanity needs to get back to its roots. The technology, it's fun, it's entertaining, but God, I think we'd be on a lot less antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds if what we did is we woke up in the morning, we said, you know what? I got to go do my chores out in the field so we got food. I got to prep the food so it's preserved. We need a bigger root cellar because our community is getting bigger, so we're going to be digging a big old trench and extending it on the root cellar. Just the things our ancestors did. Lived off the land without technology. Again, people, that life requires physical work and labor, though, and that's something else they've done to us, because they made it so that we don't live out in the world and we grow up in a system and supermarkets and packaged food and not having to work with our hands so much as flip the page of a book and scribble with a writing instrument. I mean, that's the handwork we're doing in school. But we learn to not really like physical labor and work. And in fact, we're taught and indoctrinated that that's stuff for kind of like a peasant class and a low educated class. That's things, you get a good job and then you hire somebody to do that stuff for you. But that's all status bullshit. It's just like, you'd probably be happier if you were out in nature, connected with the earth, digging in the soil, planting your crops, growing your crops, whatever, You're connected to what is actually living and alive and real. You're not... you think about it, there's a huge thing with death in our society. Like, you're studying in books, right, which are essentially like dead, mutilated trees in a way, when you think about it. And then the Gregorian calendar that we're on, it doesn't make any sense. We used to be on the Julian calendar, which made sense because we had a new year when everything was becoming anew in nature. All the plants are in bloom in the spring. That's when the new year used to be. But then we say, no. Now the new year is in the dead of winter, when the sun is anew, and we're going to worship on Sunday, and we're going to put everything in your face. What a mockery your whole existence is, and expect you to never see it. And somehow that's the magic trick they're getting away with, Yeah, I'm done, you guys. I've said enough. If you do want to check out my work, I did make both of my ebooks free. I guess I could just add a link down here to download them for free. Because here you have to buy them. They're $5 each. But I made them free on my Patreon page. I guess I could update the website like that and just have a link right there all the time to download for free. So, make it easier to download it. I just really do want the information out there. I wish people would recognize it and see it and know what's up. Because it's all right there, man. It's just humanity's not doing it. They're not doing it. And I guess I can't say I'm shocked, man. Life's just been made too easy for them. Thinking about things is just too damn difficult. And again, just to make a point about this nation, I mean, how many impoverished people are fat as hell? You know, they live on government checks. And it's not really that they're eating way more food. It's just that they're eating a lot of trash junk food that bloats their body. But the point is, if you can be fat and obese and in poverty and have the government pay your bills, I mean, that really does say a lot about your society. You know, I don't know if any people that don't work at all and just live off of the government's teat should be obese. Back in the day, like to be obese, you were the king. You know what I mean? That was a sign you were rich, that you had resources. But now, again, I think people would probably be better off if they didn't have that. You know, if they were hungry and motivated to go out and do something rather than just, you know, collect checks, be part of a system, probably be better for society. Again, we got a lot of dead weight, you guys. Got a lot of dead weight in a lot of ways. And it's all been cultivated by this gang, but, you know, again, there's fault all over the place. The people responsible and the people that are complacent, which is most of them. Yeah. And again, if you have a parent that hasn't gotten it yet, you're my age, I mean, you should speak to your parents and try to get them to think twice. Unless you don't care. Unless your heart's gotten all blackened too, but my mom, I don't have to worry about. She's not going to get the vaccine. She's definitely not going to get the vaccine. Her and my sister got into a fight because my mom called her a bad mom for getting her kids vaccinated. She said, and in a way, I mean, it wasn't the right thing to say, but in a way, it's kind of true. My sister just way too trusting of the authorities. I mean, it's not shocking at all. It's who she's been her whole life. She goes to church twice a year and thinks she's holier than thou. Christmas and Easter. What a great Christian. By the way, Christianity's 65 as well, you guys. Again, the whole thing's biblical. The whole thing's from the Society of Jesus. So, I'm telling you, you take away religion as it's taught to people in this world, none of this stuff would be possible. It's religion, it's Santa Claus, it's learning to believe these lies from a young age. Remember, Cladex was May 15th, 15/5, like 155. Christianity's 155, so is coronavirus. And Trump declared Operation Warp Speed on that day. But again, it was 666 days before the pandemic was declared. Okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you one more thing about that Good Club. Good Club. You see the Gematria? You see the 79 in it? Good Club? That this was Bill Gates, Oprah, the billionaires that got together to talk about population control. This was a little bit after the decade of vaccines. But it's got that 79 like Society of Jesus. And remember, the pandemic was declared on the 79th day of Fauci's 79th day of his age. Or what did I just say? The 79th day of him being 79 years old, the pandemic was declared. And the 79, 34, 38 is interesting because murder is just like that in all the ciphers. So, the Good Club. Again, that's what the authority is. Poses as something good, but is truly evil. And yeah. And again, for anyone to have this kind of an opinion about my book, I mean, you either have to be truly brain dead or just like filled with evil and just going around, you know, just spreading your nonsense, man. Again, people like that got to go, you guys. They got to go. I hope that person's getting his third dose tomorrow. I hope he's getting his third dose. Yeah. Yeah. How far off until the fourth dose, you know? How far? Will we make it through winter before we get the fourth dose? That's the next question. All right, you guys, we'll leave it there. I'm going to call it a night. And again, we'll do our next call-in show probably Wednesday. I do them more often, but again, you guys just can't stay on topic. And it just, I say every time, if you guys can call in, it's just a joke how every time it's just like people calling in off topic. It's like, this is a bad joke, man. That's why I wonder if all my callers are even trolls. It's just like the trolls are just so active. It's so annoying. They're always there, always posting. It's annoying as everything. And then meanwhile, you got a pack of idiots always making videos about me calling me a shill. It's like, do you know how fucking dumb you got to be to say I'm a shill? Nobody's put in more time, more effort, more energy, and been more on point in this truth community. Okay? You haven't seen anybody else here 8 years straight, every day, pumping out knowledge and information and being correct. Yeah, just because I don't believe in the middleman between God, that makes me a shill. No, that makes you a fucking moron. Makes you no different than the COVID believer, because you're both easily taken by bullshit from the Society of Jesus. So, and by the way, for Wednesday on TFR, the person in the chat that was busy spamming away that God is the only truth, I'm actually going to have them on as a guest on Wednesday, because I want them to explain why God is the only, not God is the only truth, excuse me. The only truth is Jesus. And if that's not exciting to you, that's okay. You don't have to tune in. But I want to hear this person, why they're so passionate about how the only thing that matters is Jesus, and how that's the only truth in the world. And because I want them to explain how that type of thinking is not exactly why we are where we are. The only truth in the world is something that there's no proof or evidence of. I mean, that's exactly why people will believe anything and go along with anything as long as it comes from authority. So I'm just hoping that this interview will help wake some of these Christians up to their own flawed thinking. Everyone of a religious mindset is in a flawed thinking. You're just believing in something that was taught to you as a child because it came from an authority and you were told, learn this or else, essentially. I mean, that's pretty much the bottom line with religion. And there's nothing good about that. And again, to say that a belief is the only truth, I mean, that's exactly why we are where we are. So I'm going to have that person on to explain themselves how a belief can be the only truth. Again, imagine had I been on here for the last 8 years just saying that every day, just reading from the Bible and saying belief in Jesus is the only truth. Where would the truth community be if that's all I'd done here for the last 8 years? As far as I'm concerned, in the last 8 years, nobody else has brought anything to the community that was even worth thinking about. You know, nobody else has been able to prove who's running the show, how they're doing it, call their next move before it happens. I mean, again, if I was just on here reading about the Bible, I feel like humanity would be even 10 times more fucked because they wouldn't have the information they need right now to actually hold the people who are responsible accountable. And Jesus didn't have anything to do with it. You know, Jesus hasn't made a single cameo in the 8 years I've been here. I haven't never seen a Jesus in my life. I don't know anybody who's seen Jesus. I know people who claim to have seen Jesus. And this is another person. She's going to get on and talk about how she's seen Jesus. So I just wanted to air it all out. How Jesus is the only truth. How she's seen Jesus. I just want to see if anybody's taken by it. Again, Jesus only reveals himself to some people. And again, I don't want to be mean, you guys, but I hate when I'm accused of schizophrenia. I was like, if anybody should be accused of schizophrenia, to me it's religious people. And that could be mean. Maybe I'm wrong, but again, just when people are saying that like God talks to them and, you know, they saw Jesus, I'm just like, I doubt it. I really doubt it. I mean, Jesus doesn't talk to me. I don't know why Jesus wouldn't talk to me as a little boy. I was a full-on believer, pray every night, ask for Jesus to come help out with all the problems in the house, problems I saw for other people that weren't in our house. It didn't seem like anybody was getting any help. Jesus was just a no-show every day, man. Believe, believe, believe. 12 years old. You know, I'm starting to have doubts, and then nobody can answer any questions, and I'm getting in trouble for asking good questions, and I'm like, yeah, these Jesus people just... This is as bad as what I'm getting in school with Christopher Columbus discovered a land where people already live, man. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. So yeah, I got to keep going after the religion, you guys, because the religion's the root of all this. It's the root of all this, and it's why it's a religious order that's... And by the way, she's also going to say that she's not religious even though she believes in Jesus. I don't understand how you can make that claim. How can you be not religious if... you believe in Jesus? You wouldn't know the name Jesus without the religion. Jesus is part of a religion. That makes you religious because you believe in part of that religion. You might have your disagreements with it, but you're still within that religion. It's like people don't even understand language. To believe in Jesus, you have to be religious. You can't just say, "Oh, no, I'm only spiritual." That doesn't make any sense. There's no... there is a spirituality where God has a middleman and a son named Jesus. That's a religion. called Christianity. You know what I mean? It's just like these people don't understand language. That they understand that religion's this bad thing and they don't want to be part of it, but they still want to hold on to their belief from that religion and then say they're not a part of the religion. It's like, you don't even make sense when you just take a look at yourself. Why would I take your word for it on anything? You don't even understand the difference between religion and spirituality. You know? Why would your opinion matter at all? And if somebody's saying, well, why are you going to have that person on your show? Again, because I just want that. Maybe that's what needs to be on the show. Just listening to a religious person just talk about how they saw Jesus and that's how they know Jesus is the only truth. And just, again, I'll ask them. I'll say, okay, can you make Jesus, manifest right now? Can you have a conversation with Jesus about what we should do about, the society of Jesus, who's clearly behind the pandemic? Does Jesus have a solution for that? Maybe Jesus doesn't care because they're the society of Jesus. And I'm sure the answers will be that person, can't do any of those things. Jesus just shows up sometimes when they're all alone and it's just them and Jesus. It's like, well, why is it that way? Because there's a lot of people that believe in Jesus. I mean, why doesn't he just show up in your church house? You guys are all singing to Jesus. Does anyone has that ever happened in church? Everyone's singing to Jesus and then they all see Jesus at once. Does that ever happen? Maybe these people, see, that's what I mean. These people could actually be schizophrenic. These are functioning schizophrenics. They think they're seeing Jesus, but really it's just some figment of their imagination that's there because of all the religious indoctrination as a child. So, again, you take away the Bibles, nobody believes in Jesus. We might still believe in Mithra or Zeus or something else from an ancient civilization, but again, you just see that the human minds are they're just so easy for the taking, man. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I feel like everybody should have the same faculties I do. I don't know what'd be so special about me. My parents aren't, they're not any different than anybody else. I came from them. So, I don't know, man. All I can say is I grew up in Portland. We didn't have fluoride in the water. Smoking that green ganja, that old school medicine, that old school cannabis. I used to notice when I was younger, whenever I'd take a break from smoking, I would get sick. And I'd be like, man, maybe I should never quit smoking. When I smoke, I'm always healthy. When I stop smoking, then I get sick. It's like, man, I was smoking weed that whole time, man. It must have been fighting those germs. Thought I was good to take a week off. Next thing I know, I got a little head cold here. That's a real story, too. It just makes me wonder. I'm like, all those times I got a little head cold when I just took a... Because as a smoker, I mean, if you smoke weed, it's normal to take breaks. It's like in the summer, if I take a break, I don't get sick. But if I do in the winter, get sick. Just a little. I never got real sick, but I was like, man, I think the weed is keeping me healthy. I don't know if it's the hot air going down or it's that old medicine, but man, way better than any of this shit they're selling in the store. So... I know weed's not causing any Delta variants. Well, in terms of sleep waves, it can put you to sleep too. Got so many purposes. All right. I got to stop, you guys. I'm just rambling on and on and on and on. I know a lot of you guys feel alone in the world and you like when I'm on because then you have a community. So that's why I keep rambling on. But I got to get off and spend some time with Sweet Lady. And Jonathan might even want, and I said let's do it Sunday, but I haven't heard from him yet. If he's out there and wants to do his live stream tonight, I'll be back on later with Jonathan. But yeah, you guys just remember you're not alone in the world, and there's a lot of us, and there can be more, but there's too many of the ones that are definitely not like us. And that's why we just got to put our hands together for the vaccine, I guess. Do the job. Get rid of these baby boomer turds and all these other people that hate the truth and have had their thumb up. Well, I don't know if that's the right phrase, but yeah, you guys, I just a lot of you can't understand why I am the way I am. It's because you haven't been awake for 20 years and speaking out and gotten the ridicule you have from society. But I have, and I know that these people need to go because they are a serious problem and they are dragging us all to hell. So if you have a problem with that, again, I think it's because you're a little bit too soft and you're a little bit too naive and you're a little bit too ignorant and because you probably haven't been awake that long and maybe you're still not all that awake. But these people are bad and that is the silver lining about what's being done. The trash has to go. But it has to be more than that, because these people who are in control, they need to go as well. They need to go even more than the trash, honestly. If you had that question for me, who needs to go first? The people at the top need to go first. They really do all need to go, though. Again, just look at what they're doing to the... Look at because of all the ineptness of society, look at what's going on with children right now. The vaccines, the masks. Again, it's a sick thing that's going on, you guys. A culture of fear. Going to be afraid of each other. There's some serious damage they're doing to the minds of the youth worldwide. And it's all because of the inept adult populace collection of fucking losers who have been trying to wake up for 20 years. So... Oh, man, I feel bad, you guys, because it's just like, I don't mean to take you out on such a bad note, but it is what it is, you guys. And again, it's a period of being tough. So you got to be tough. You got to see things for what they are. And you got to keep on speaking out, too, in whatever way you can. If you're not sharing information, if you're not speaking out in any way, again, what's that quote that I play at the beginning of TFR almost every week? Silence is betrayal. So don't betray, the people who get it and matter, and especially all the young people who don't have a choice and are having to comply. And that's always been my motivation, is doing it for younger generations so they don't have to go through the same thing I'm going through. This world's torture for anybody with a mind. And more people should have a mind. It's just their mind's taken away from them, the system. But yeah, you guys, stay strong out there. And again, if you got a parent or somebody in that age group that's going to go out and get their third booster, I mean, here. If you want to, here. There's a post where I have a really long... Okay. I have a lot of 56s right here. And there's even more that could go on this list, but this is a good list right here. If you can show this post, if you go to gematriaeffect.news and you just search like Project Runway on there's a search box, or COVID Kapoor, whose name is spelled with 2 Ks. Again, you can look this up. This is a real thing. The mainstream media said this was just a coincidence. But in spring of 2019, the TV show, the reality show Project Runway, had a contestant named COVID Kapoor. Spelled COVID with a K, Kapoor with a K, which is a common Indian surname. As in India, As in all the people that have all the tech jobs in Seattle, Washington. Oh, man, when we were down there March 13th, 2020, there were these 2 Indian guys who had grocery bags just packed with toilet paper. This was in the time of the toilet paper hysteria. And Big Al and I were trying to get their attention to talk to them about 56 and coronavirus and toilet paper. And they were like, "Oh, you guys are crazy." And these are the brilliant math minds that are building the computer algorithms that are censoring us all, and the face recognition technology that don't really give a shit that they're selling out America because they're not Americans. But and by the way, I like Indian people. This isn't an attack on Indian people. Indian people are very nice people, but there's also some smug little scumbags that are down at the big tech companies like the ones I'm talking about right now. But these 2 Indian idiots who are brilliant in certain ways, in computer ways, but just complete morons, just going along with the news, and literally just huge sacks full of toilet paper at the time of the crises. And we're like, look at these fucking guys, man. Look at these guys over here. I don't know why I didn't record them. Probably because I don't normally record people if they don't. I wish I would have in hindsight. Who gives a shit? I should have recorded these 2 morons shouting us down. But this Project Runway contestant, COVID Kapoor, what was different about him is he was making, it was supposed to be making outfits for people, the best outfits. Well, his outfits had one extra touch. You wore a face mask that matched the outfit, just like the ones people are now wearing, right? The people have like the designer COVID masks for their favorite sports team. So COVID Kapoor, in spring of 2019, months before the supposed outbreak in Wuhan, is this contestant, right? And then, The mainstream media came out because this went viral on the internet. They said, oh, it's just a coincidence. This is just conspiracy theorists saying that there's some kind of predictive programming. But then it's like, oh, let's take the Gematria lens to it and see if it's beyond coincidence. COVID Kapoor 56. What's his birth name? Kevin Kapoor, which is also 56. Like coronavirus, like Regeneron. I forgot to put COVID vaccine up there. COVID vaccine 56. Unemployment 56. Big issue with the pandemic. Pope's encyclical about what to do about coronavirus and climate change. Fratelli Tutti 56. Climate change is also 56. Mind control 56. Toilet paper, COVID toilet paper shortage. Anthony Fauci 56. Society of Jesus 56. Washington, D.C. 56. Paris, France, where they're from 56. Gavin Newsom 56, who locked down California, saying 56% of California will get coronavirus in 8 weeks. The first 2 cities with COVID in the U.S., both in the time of the 56th mayor. And just a million more things. All over the nation they've been doing, all over the world, they've been doing 56 rituals. Especially in the UK with Boris Johnson. They went nuts with it over there. And that Reuters debunking piece came out on a date with 56 numerology, right? December 4, 2020, 4 days before the vaccine went live. But this is what I mean, you guys. It's just they make a mockery of us. They find a guy named Kevin Kapoor, and they tell him to go by COVID Kapoor for the show. That's where he went by COVID Kapoor. Just ironically, he chose this COVID Kapoor as his fashion designer name for this TV program, right? And has you wear a mask. Who'd ever heard of COVID before? You know what I mean? Oh my God. But even without Gematria, like just to take the mainstream media's word for it that it's just a coincidence, based on what? How do you know it's just a coincidence? Well, we asked Kevin, and he told us it was just a coincidence. Oh, right. Because we don't need to think any more than that. Hold on. I saw a clip today. I want to see if it's online. I'm gonna play this is how we're going out. Actually, this is how we're going out. We're gonna play. I can't even believe that CNN thinks they can play that. How dumb is CNN's audience? Just watch this, man. It's just like, what in the? All right, after this commercial, always got to be ads. Isn't it amazing how much people pay for cable and it's just like nothing but ads? It's like, God, you're paying all this money for your cable bill and you're just watching a bunch of damn ads getting programmed even more. But this is an unbelievable segment they did. And I want you to see how they go after Sean Hannity. If you want to watch a comical piece of TV, go back to Sean Hannity's September 10th, 2020 broadcast. I hardly ever watch this guy's show, and I don't know how bad it's been lately, but I happened to catch it September 10th, 2020, the day before the 9/11 anniversary, and the day after Joe Biden's speech. And man, Sean Hannity got on there, and he was talking about, this liberal agenda and all the stuff wrong with the pandemic and Joe Biden. But then after all this tough talk, then he goes, but I believe in the vaccine and the science behind the vaccine, and that's why I got it. And I was just like, oh my God. So you just made it all political, and it's all the liberals, and this whole thing has all these signs that are wrong with it. But then he has to end it with all this tough talk with, but I believe in the science of the vaccine, and that's why I got the vaccine. I'm just like, oh my God. I was like, who's watching this? I've always known Sean Hannity such a pawn, such a plant, just a little political divider. All he cares about is his political party. They're always right. He's on all sides of all issues too, like all other political types, because you have to be behind these parties. They take all sides of all issues these days. Conservatives don't stand for nothing. Liberals don't stand for nothing. It's just two pathetic groups, man, in this nation. It's like you support these parties that have just like sold us out in every way possible. You're pathetic. Can't see this game. Number 43 in Florida, where his brother was the 43rd governor and his dad was the 43rd vice president. And they went to Yale 43. Hold on. Let me just... let me get past this commercial, then we'll watch this clip. Here we go.
4 words. 4 little words that are hurting America's pandemic response. What are they? Here, let Sean Hannity tell you. He loves these words.
Do your own research. Please do your own research. Do your own research. Do your own research. There's a ton of it right on, at the tip of your fingers on your own phone.
Right, and that's the problem. Do your own research. Everybody has a supercomputer in their hand that empowers them to do their own research, which is great, right? Isn't it?
Can we all stop saying, I need to do my own research? Nobody who's saying that is getting in a lab and doing tests. At best, you're reading other people's research. And more likely, you're probably reading a tweet about a headline, about a blog post, about someone else's research.
See, Sean Hannity can learn a thing or two from Trevor Noah. That phrase, do your own research.
Okay, so the unspoken thing that the masses understand is, yeah, we're not listening to other people. We're just taking the research from the authority, right? Because that part's just a given in their mind. They're like, it's okay to trust the government and the news. Those are the trusted authorities that I learned about in my 13 years of slave school as I pledged allegiance to the 13 stripes and never thought about all the numerical rituals going on in my life. But, and then on Sunday school, I was learning about Jesus and his, the clique of 13, Jesus and the 12 homies, But there's more to this clip, and we're going to watch it. But again, I'd be like, okay, Trevor Noah, so what? We should just trust the government's research? Or are you just into blindly trusting governments, and you just blindly trust Pfizer's research, who has a profit-driven interest, who's the most sued company in the history of the world for wrongful death and injury? Like, we're just supposed to trust them, right? Because that's what they're implying, right? Only trust them. Stop listening to anybody else. Just trust the news that tells you should go out and get the vaccine while they report to you simultaneously that cases are 3 times worse than they were at this year last time when there wasn't a vaccine. I mean, you can only get away with this in a society that has zero critical thinking, which is what I understood after 9/11, because 9/11 was such a transparent lie, you had to be brain dead to not see it. But here, let's listen to these. And by the way, just this guy that they have on there, these TV actor teleprompter readers, holding that long pose because they took a little bit extra to cut to the other clip, and you could tell how he had to hold the face like for extra. Did you watch that? Here, well, let's watch it again. Watch how he has to hold his face pose, because you can tell, because he probably has a light there for when it cuts, but you can tell he has to hold the smirk he's making on his face. Let's just take this from the top. I'm not even going to say anything. Just watch the whole trash segment through. But watch what he does with the posing with the smirk, because I guarantee that's even mentioned on the camera that he's reading off of, like how the body expression is supposed to be. Here we go.
4 little words that are hurting America's pandemic response.
Oh, by the way, and let me also point out that this fat fuck has a double chin, and he wants to talk about what people should do to be healthy. Shut up, you fat fucking schmuck. I hate how many fat slobs are in this nation, too, if you're new here. It makes me sick. And when I have to hear about fat people lecturing me on anything health-related, I'm just like, shut the fuck up, man. Your suit doesn't hide your double chin, you fat sloppy fuck. Here we go.
What are they? Here, let Sean Hannity tell you. He loves these words.
Do your own research. Please do your own research. Do your own research. Do your own research. There's a ton of it right on, at the tip of your fingers on your own phone.
Right, and that's the problem. Do your own research. Everybody has a supercomputer in their hand that empowers them to do their own research, which is great, right? Isn't it?
Can we all stop saying, I need to do my own research? Nobody who's saying that is getting in a lab and doing tests. At best, you're reading other people's research. And more likely, you're probably reading a tweet about a headline, about a blog post, about someone else's research.
See, Sean Hannity can learn a thing or two from Trevor Noah. That phrase, do your own research, it's popping up a lot in conversations about coronavirus and about COVID vaccines. Nicki Minaj...
I just got to say, too, he comes in with the fake laugh, because that's what you have to do, because Trevor Noah's not funny at all. And then here, another important person to pick on, Nicki Minaj. By the way, Nicki Minaj... Oh, I forgot to say something earlier. Damn it. You remember how I told you Bill Gates' decade of vaccines was on his 94th day of his age, or 93 days after his birthday? Remember, Wuhan coronavirus, 93, how it was first titled, right? Nicki Minaj is about another big 93. And... again, you guys, this all goes back to the gang that runs the show that tells us the sun, the source of light, is 93 million miles away. The Order of Illuminati, which is the Jesuit order whose logo is the sun. And again, all these rituals are time-based rituals. That's why Bill Gates' decade of vaccines, all synced up with the pandemic, was 93 days after his birthday or his 95th day of his age. I did that a lot tonight because I just was trying to carry too many thoughts at once. But here, without interrupting anymore, here's the rest of this trash segment where they're really attacking people for doing their own research, because this is now a bad idea in the 21st century, where the only thing you need to do is just trust what the authorities always tell you. Don't even try to think for yourself at all.
Minaj used similar wording in that tweet this week, saying she was doing research. But this go-it-alone approach, doing your own research, it seems so innocent, but it can have serious consequences. Let's talk about it with two actual researchers. Yael Eisenstadt and Renee DiResta are back. Renee, what are the roots of this phrase? I feel like I used to hear it around QAnon craziness.
Yeah. I got to interrupt again. I'm sorry. I got to interrupt. The QAnon craziness, just how they have to tie that in there. Again, QAnon is a Jesuit psyop. QAnon equals 201 in Jewish Gematria, just like the Jesuit order is 201. And again, Anonymous wears the Guy Fawkes mask, who was a Jesuit. Remember the 5th of November, the day leaving 56 days left in the year, the day Boris Johnson locked down the UK or London after the UK strain, which at first they said was 70% more infectious. Coronavirus, COVID vaccine, 70. United Kingdom, 70. Then they said it was 56% more infectious. Coronavirus, COVID vaccine, 56. Boris Johnson, 56 years old at the time, read the 56-page winter plan. Again, if you're not doing your own research, there's no way you're ever going to find my work, which proves what's really going on with these supposed scientific stats that politicians and talking heads repeat. They're all made-up bullshit. I just showed Biden the other day talking. He said last month, 56% less cases and 70%, something about hospitalizations. It's like, listen to this shit. They're just reading bullshit off a teleprompter. And Mr. Double Chin with his expressions, QAnon, again, all part of their psyop to discredit. See, that's what they like to create, psyops to suck people in who are looking for truth to make them look stupid. And I would contend that flat earth theory is a big part of that as well. But QAnon definitely was. Here we go.
It became, got a lot of coverage in the context of QAnon, but it dates back to the 1890s. It dates back to the origin of the anti-vaccine movement, where there was a lot of debate about whether allopathic doctors or homeopathic doctors were accurate in their findings about inoculation. This goes all the way back to the era of smallpox. In the 90s, you actually saw the phrase used positively in the context of the internet. Particularly, there was a shortage of doctor time, and so they would say, hey, you can do some of the research about your condition by reading these websites, and they would point people to websites online, like things like WebMD and that kind of more authoritative sources in the early days of the internet prior to the kind of proliferation.
More authoritative sources. Again, just this word. And remember what's encoded behind authority. The numbers, right? Same numbers as government, as Christian, as news, as Washington, D.C.
That we've seen today of less reputable sources.
Right, I see.
One of the real challenges... Oh, go ahead.
No, I just, the idea that this has been around forever, but now that we all have these phones, we all have this ability, do your own research, it's supercharged. And yeah, I wonder how you view it in the context of Nicki Minaj. Like this idea that, oh yeah, she's just doing her research. Isn't that just her way of saying, I want an excuse to reconfirm my priors not to get the vaccine?
So it's so interesting, right? Because in and of itself, the idea of doing your own research is not a bad idea. We should have a healthy skepticism of the information that is fed to us. But in a world today where so much of our information is actually dominated by clicks and engagement and salacious, all the things that we were just talking about, the way social media is designed, and honestly, the way a lot of different media companies, unfortunately, are competing in that space, nobody's going to the library and looking up authoritative sources to do their own research. They're doing a Google search.
Oh, shit. Hold on. Do you guys see what it says she is? Okay. Look at, like, why do I even give a fuck about this lady's opinion? Former global head of elections integrity ops for political ads at Facebook. Okay, so just like a person that's entirely invested in politics. And remember, Facebook's a huge Jesuit operation. If you haven't read my book, I show what a Jesuit pawn Mark Zuckerberg is, born in 84. Same year Fauci took over NIH, the notorious year, big Jesuit year. But I mean, just like the guests they have on each day, it's just like, God, who wants to hear from these people? Like, why do they have any say on the matter? Why does what they think matter? Someone who's has a career in politics. I mean,
authoritative sources to do their own research. They're doing a Google search, a YouTube search, and they're getting information that it is always easy to find information that confirms your biases, that points to what it is you want to know. Now with Nicki Minaj, I don't assume ill intent with her. But don't forget, the same phrase, do your research, is being peddled by some people who do have ill intent, who want to push you down certain paths, who want to, either for profit reasons or for geopolitical reasons, want to make sure that you are reading certain information as opposed to listening to authoritative sources. So what...
Oh my God, and then just that whopper right there. You can just tell this is one of their trained agent scums. I mean, come on. Who are the people that for geopolitical and profit-driven reasons that are pumping out? I mean, it's just such a sick... This is why I hate this world and the people that cannot see through it. I mean, you know how fucking dumb you have to be to not see through what this fucking scumbag just said? I don't care if she's a lady. I'd put a bullet right through her head, too. Fuck her. I mean, you got to be a scumbag to get on and talk this shit. I know that this person knows that they're full of shit. I mean, are you kidding me? They're going to go to commercial break, and it's going to be advertising Pfizer products. This is who we're supposed to trust? The for-profit news network that's paid for by Pfizer, who's putting money in all the politicians' pockets because there's more Pfizer lobbyists in D.C. than there are politicians? Not to mention these other big pharma giants is no different. There's way more lobbyists in D.C. than politicians, and they run the show. This is a big fascist enterprise. But my God, this is a geopolitical thing, and it is a huge money scheme. And it's just like, and then she made it seem like, you know, those are the people that are not in the authority. It's just like, fuck you, man. And what I hate is just how many dumb idiots would just eat it up and be like, I think that's true. She's talking about like the hucksters on YouTube that come up with some self-remedy for COVID. It's like, yeah, that huckster on YouTube, they might be a little bit of one, but, you know, their home remedy's probably better for you than Pfizer's vaccine at the end of the day, okay? You probably don't need that either. You probably just need to rest up, you know, get that big vitamin C boost, make sure you get enough sleep, get some hot fluids in you, you know. There's other things you can take, apple cider vinegar. There's all sorts of natural remedies that people know about for health and wellness. You can only say so much because they'll take it down for medical information. Apple cider vinegar is not a cure for coronavirus. This video has been removed. It's like, I never said it was, you fucking assholes. God. But it's just, you know, the fact that this is how bad it is right now, that they can put this on their news network. I feel like nobody should ever watch CNN again if they catch a clip like this, but then again, they're playing clips like this all around the clock, and it's like, who the fuck is watching this shit? And in agreement? I mean, come on. The huckster on YouTube's got geopolitical strategies about his misinformation, right? It's just like, look at her goddamn face, man. I got to rewind it. We got to play it one more time. I keep interrupting, but this lady, I didn't want to say. And just, you notice the lady in the red, what she was saying, that the scumbag in the middle is like, wait a minute. She's talking about the history of how it actually was good to look up information. He had to cut her off. Right? He had to cut her off, and then he's like, let's go over to this one, right? This one's a little bit more well-trained for the agenda with the words that we want spoken today.
So it's so interesting, right? Because in and of itself, the idea of doing your own research is not a bad idea. We should have a healthy skepticism of the information that is fed to us. But in a world today where so much of our information is actually dominated by clicks and engagement and salacious, all the things that we were just talking about, the way social media is designed, and honestly, the way a lot of different media companies, unfortunately, are competing in that space, nobody's going to the library and looking up authoritative sources to do their own research. They're doing a Google search, a YouTube search, and they're getting information that it is always easy to find information that confirms your biases, that points to what it is you want to know. Now with Nicki Minaj, I don't assume ill intent with her. But don't forget, the same phrase, do your research, is being peddled by some people who do have ill intent, who want to push you down certain paths, who want to, either for profit reasons or for geopolitical reasons, want to make sure that you are reading certain information as opposed to listening to authoritative sources. So what should be an actually smart idea, especially in the US with such a lack of funding and media literacy and all of these issues, it can really actually help make things worse.
I mean, just like grinning and smiling while she's saying what she's saying too. I'm telling you, these people know that they are fucking scum. I can just read her face while she's talking, you know? It's a joke. It is a joke, these people they put on TV. I mean, that's the TV is an information weapon, and they got some straight up sociopathic agents that are just down for their cause. You know? She looks like she belongs in Seattle, honestly, with that hairstyle too. Anyway. Yeah. Again, the only people with mental illness are the people that are falling for this shit, man. From 9/11 to coronavirus. They are severely mentally ill. All right, True Seeker. I am signing off for real this time. Have a good rest of your night. And until next time.